Okay, good evening and welcome to the December 8th, 2025 meeting of the Town of Barnstable Planning Board here at 367 Main Street, Barnstable Town Hall, Hyannis, Mass. James H. Crocker Jr. Hearing Room, second floor at 7 p.m. The meeting notice was previously filed with the town clerk. Application materials may be accessed through the Planning Board website at townofbarnstable.us/boards-committees/planning board, or by contacting Karen Pina at karen.pina@town.barnstable.ma.us or calling 508-862-4064. Notice of recording: the meeting will be televised live via Xfinity Channel 8 or High Definition Channel 1072. It may also be accessed via the Government Access Channel live stream on the Town of Barnstable's website, which is barnstable.cablecast.tv/internet channel/watch now. I will now inquire whether anyone else is taping the meeting, and if you are, please make your presence known. Seeing none, we will continue. Call the meeting to order and introduce board members and staff, starting with Mary.
Thanks, Mary Barry. Good evening.
Ray.
Good evening, Ray Sexton.
And Matt.
Matt Tay, good evening.
Tim.
Good evening, Tim O'Neill.
Michael.
Good evening, Michael Messinas.
Catherine.
Hello, Catherine Finkenstadt.
Kyle.
Kyle Pedicini, Assistant Director for Planning and Development.
Jim.
Good evening, Jim Cupford, Director of Planning and Development.
And Karen.
Karen Pina, Admin Assistant, Planning and Development.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So before we get to general public comment, I'd like to talk about public comment. I've kind of let public comment periods get a little bit too informal lately, deviating from best practices that we should all be following. We're going to follow the lead of the Town Council and Town Council President Tamish and tighten things up and make things a little bit more formal. The Town Council recently approved their new Town Council Rules of Procedure in July of this year, approved by a unanimous vote by all 13 councilors. Drawing from this, specifically Section 5H and following President Tamish's lead, who, by the way, does a phenomenal job handling public comment, I'm going to read a brief public comment statement prior to each meeting. This brief statement will review the public comment rules as well as inform the public of all opportunities to speak available to them at the meeting. This will let the public know ahead of time each of the opportunities they'll have to speak. The goal is more consistency with Town Council and other boards and committees, as well as clear transparency, clear expectations at the start of each meeting. Overall fairness between all speakers. These rules are nothing new. We're simply getting back to basics to run a more polished and professional meeting. So again, this is something that prior to general public comment will be read into the record at each meeting, and I'm going to read this now. I wish to remind everyone that no member of the public, a board member, an applicant, a presenter, or town staff may speak without first being recognized by the chair. The public will have an opportunity to speak during the general public comment period, which takes place at the beginning of each meeting, as well as during any public hearing on an agenda item. This evening, we have 5 opportunities for the public to speak. The first is our general public comment session, which is any comment not related to our agenda this evening, but related to the purview of this board. The second is a roadway rescission, which is a new item for us, and that includes a public hearing. And the third, fourth, and fifth are all zoning amendments. 008, which is home occupation, 012, which is commercial vehicles, and 005, which is building height. During these 5 opportunities to speak, members of the public are free to express their thoughts, opinions, and criticisms. However, comments must be directed to the board as a body through the chair. The public may not speak directly to any individual board member. The public also should not be addressing comments directly to anyone else in this room, not to town staff, not to an applicant, a presenter, or to any member of the audience. Again, public comment is to be addressed to the board as a whole. Members of the public are to refrain from making audible comments during the meeting unless they have been recognized by the chair. All members of the public are allowed to speak without disruption or interruption. For each of the 5 opportunities to speak this evening, each member of the public shall be provided 1 opportunity to speak. During each of those opportunities to speak, each member of the public shall be allotted 4 minutes. At 3 minutes, the chair or designated board member shall notify the speaker that they have 1 minute remaining and to please wrap up. At 4 minutes, the speaker will be notified that their time is up and they are to stop speaking and leave the podium at that time. During public comment, I ask board members are being instructed to listen respectfully without interrupting the speaker. Once all members of the public have had an opportunity to speak, each board member will then have an opportunity to respond to public comment. However, members, of course, are not obligated to do so. I'd also just mention that board members should be referring to speakers in the third person rather than speak to them directly. An example would be instead of saying, Mr. Smith, your comments were excellent, you could say, the comments offered by Mr. Smith were excellent. To reiterate, during each of the 5 opportunities to speak outlined earlier, members of the public will have 1 opportunity to speak. And I just wanted to add one more thing. These rules apply to all members of the public, which includes town councilors or members of other boards and committees in the town, including subcommittees, ad hoc committees, etc. Now, again, I stole most of this from President Tamish. He reads this at each of his meetings. He runs a very polished meeting, I feel, and just wanted us to follow those best practices that he and other boards and committees follow. All right? So that is that. So we will continue on to our general public comment session this meeting. Again, this is for any public comment not on the agenda this evening, but of course that is under the purview of this board. Welcome. State your name for the record. Thank you for coming.
Eric Schwab, Hyannis. Through you, Mr. Chair, would you inquire whether or not any of your board members had filed conflict of interest statements before this meeting? I ask because at least one member of your board is an officer with a special interest lobbying group which promotes large-scale housing development Cape-wide. The same individual consulted with the Cape Cod Commission on a regional housing strategy, which again promotes high-density housing across the Cape. Now, I feel, particularly with regard to the last item, that it's inappropriate for a member of a special interest group to have a vote on housing and particularly building height in Hyannis. It's inappropriate. I'd also like to make a more general comment. It seems that members of your board are having difficulty separating their own personal interests and their business interests from what's best for the town. I think you're supposed to be representing the town as a whole, and that you should put your own personal interest, particularly your business interests, aside when you're considering zoning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the comments. Any additional public comment? Please come forward at this time. Mr. Schulte, welcome. Thank you. State your name for the record.
Bob Schulte from Centerville. Good evening. Just want to make a point of clarification before you get into some of the other items tonight. Before you start discussions on items 2026-08, home occupations, and 2026-012, off-street storage of commercial vehicles, trailers, and homes, I just want to make it clear to the planning board members and the public that those 2 proposed amendments did not come from the ad hoc zoning and regulatory committee. At least one planning board member has made several references in prior meetings that these 2 items came from the ad hoc zoning committee, and that's incorrect. Both of those items were proposed by the town Barnstable Quality of Life Working Group, led by Assistant Town Manager Andy Clyburn, and did not come from the ad hoc zoning committee. Again, just a point of clarification. It's come up several times. Several the members have made references to it coming from the ad hoc committee, and it didn't. It came from the Quality of Life Group. So just a clarification. Thank you.
Fair enough. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. Any additional general public comment? The time is now. Thank you very much. Okay, seeing none, I will move to board response to public comment. We'll start on my right. Catherine, any response to public comment this evening?
Not at this time, no.
Thank you very much. Michael?
Almost set, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Tim?
I'm all set, thank you.
All right. Matt?
None, thank you.
Ray?
None here.
Mary?
None here, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to our first item this evening, this is a roadway rescission. And Matt, would you mind taking this one?
Claudio and Maria De Letizia and CN Eddy LLC has submitted a request to rescind a private way located at 81 and 91 Hawes Ave, Hyannis, map 323, parcel 009 and 010.
Excellent, thank you very much. This is a new public hearing. I move to open the public hearing. Do we have a second?
Second.
Give it to Michael. Thank you, Michael. All those in favor? Mary?
Aye.
Ray?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Catherine?
Aye.
And myself, Steve Robichaud, votes aye. Public hearing is open. Now, this is a new one for us. I think this might be the first one that I've seen. The only one I can think of is Mother's Park. That was related to the septic project. But, Jim, I'd like a quick overview on this, if you could, with the voting threshold, and then we'll go to the applicant.
Absolutely. Good evening, Jim Cupford, Director of Planning and Development. Yes, as the chairman mentioned, this is a rather unique application before the planning board, at least for the town of Barnstable. Mother's Park was similar. It was alteration and rescission of certain areas in a public way. This is a rescission of a private way that's essentially between two properties, 81 and 91 Hawes Ave. This is going to be structured very similar to that of your standard subdivision rules and regulations. However, now rather than approving a way, we are rescinding the way. So in subdivision rules and regulations, it's the majority vote of the board. So it's a majority vote here tonight to approve or disapprove of the rescission of the way. The other unique aspect of this is that this is actually originally approved by the Board of Surveyors from 1953, so this predates your modern planning board that you see here this evening. But working with our legal team and our surveyor, we confirmed the process that would mimic that of the planning board subdivision rules and regulations. So before you tonight, it's an approval, whether or not to approve the rescission of the way. We do have staff comments from our surveyor from the Department of Public Works, who had a few bullet points, suggested edits to the plan, which you have received in your package update this evening. And the plan that's before you, the applicant has provided those updates addressing those concerns, and the applicant's here tonight to answer any questions for you.
Great. Thank you very much for that. The board is in receipt of a staff report. It's dated December 8th, 2025. And we have the applicant with us. If you can state your name for the record. Thank you for coming down.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. For the record, Attorney Michael Schultz on behalf of the applicants, Claudio and Maria Delizia, as well as Cianetti LLC. With me this evening, I have John O'Day, who's working in conjunction with EAS, or Ed Stone, the surveyor. The applicants are the owners of 81 and 91 Hawes Avenue in Hyannis. As Jim Cupfer noted, the plan that was approved by the Board of Survey in 1950, as shown on Plan Book 111, page 139. Kyle, are you able to just bring that up for the board members to look at? As shown, a way was created to access lots 3 and 4, which were not on Hawes Avenue. Lots 1 and 2 needed access, or did not need access. They maintained frontage on Hawes Avenue. No homes were ever built on lots 1 and 2, and so presently lots 1 and 4 have been merged and are now known as 91 Hawes Avenue, and they do maintain the required frontage on Hawes Avenue in the RB zoning district. Lots 2 and 3 have now merged and are shown as, or known as, 81 Hawes Avenue, and they also maintain the required frontage. By operation of law, the derelict fee statute, the fee in the roadway has merged with either side. Aside from the applicants, there are no others that have rights in the roadway, and the applicants would respectfully request that you would approve the rescission, and would be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Certainly seems pretty straightforward. I just have a few questions. So the current way that's to be rescinded was never named, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And does the location of that way somewhat match the current driveways for the home? Is it a shared driveway that kind of is centered around the way
It does.
to be rescinded?
Yes.
Okay. Understood. All right.
And with the rescission, they would get rid of the roadway and each construct their own driveway.
Oh, great. Okay. Appreciate that. And am I right in saying that the next step after this would be an A&R application?
That's correct.
Okay. Excellent. Questions, comments, concerns, starting with Mary?
None. I had the same question you had about the road that looks like
Beat
a
you
road
to it.
now, but no, I'm all set. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Ray?
Yeah, you stole both of our thunder, I think. So to be clear, so the rescinded way, or would-be rescinded way, is now some sort of, it's not grass, it's a driveway, or it's something like that?
That's correct.
Okay, and then basically what we're doing is some housekeeping to take care of the administrative part of it, and what you're saying is essentially it's going to get split down the middle by the two lots, and they can find their own way out to Hawes Avenue?
That is correct.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Ray. Matt, anything?
No, it looks pretty straightforward.
Okay. Tim?
My only question is if the applicant has reviewed the comments from DPW and if there was any credence to incorporating them in the final plan that's approved as part of this, or will that be cleaned up in the A&R plan? Is that what goes on record?
Yeah, those were some good comments with a keen eye, so I assume those will be cleaned up. Go ahead.
The staff comments listed in the staff report
Yes, sir.
on page 1, I believe those have been addressed in the revised plan that was sent to staff.
Excellent.
That is correct. We received that today.
Beautiful.
It'll be it's in your package.
Nicely done. Good timing.
Great.
Tim?
That's it.
All right. Michael?
I'm all set, thanks.
Thank you, Michael. Catherine?
These frontage lots, lots 1 and 3, they haven't merged into, they're not two separate lots. They still remain as 4 lots. So upon sale, could they be divided again and structures built on the 2 front lots?
No, they could not. So they're separately owned. They're not owned by the same individuals. So 81 Hawes Avenue is owned by Claudio and Maria Delizia, and then 91 Hawes Avenue is owned by Cianetti LLC.
But if they were to sell those lots, can these lots be divided in 2 again?
No, they cannot.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good question. Okay, we'll go to the public. If we have any public comments on this one, again, this is an open public hearing. Public is welcome to come forward and make comments if they wish. Okay, seeing no public comment, seek a motion to close the public hearing. Thank you, Ray. Do we have a second?
Tim, I'll second.
Thank you, Tim. All those in favor? Mary?
Aye.
Ray?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Catherine?
Aye.
And myself, Steve Robichaud, votes aye. Public hearing is closed. So let's take a look at our agenda real quick. I believe this is going to follow the same path as we're used to, which is, let's see, reading the findings on the staff report and referencing the conditions. So look for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the special permit as presented, subject to the following findings.
Just to jump in, it wasn't a special permit, it was a...
It says special permit
Wait, right,
on the conditions.
hit this motion.
Okay. Let me clarify that. I will make a motion to approve the application for rescission of a road at 81 and 91 Hawes Road with the following findings and conditions. Finding number 1, the property location is 81 and 91 Hawes Road, Hyannis, and is shown as Assessor's Map 323, parcels 009 and 010 in the Residential B RB zoning district. The applicant, number 2, the applicant Claudio and Maria Delizia and Cianetti LLC is proposing to rescind the private way located between the 81 and 91 Hawes Ave, as shown on the plan originally proposed by the Board of Surveyors, recorded with the Barnstable Registry of Deeds in Plan Book 111, page 139, dated August 31, 1953. Finding number 3, after an evaluation of all the evidence presented, this proposal fulfills the spirit and intent of the zoning ordinance and would not represent a substantial detriment to the public good or to the neighborhood effect. Number 4, the proposed repairs, alterations, and/or expansion are not substantially more detrimental to the surrounding neighborhood. I will also reference the conditions 1 through 5 presented in the staff report.
Excellent. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate that. And a second?
Tim, I'll second.
Thank you, Tim. All those in favor? Mary?
Aye.
Ray?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Catherine?
Aye.
And myself, Steve Robichaud, votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Best of
Have a
luck.
great night.
Okay, moving on to our next item this evening is a zoning amendment, Town Council item number 2026-008. Tim, would you like to read this one in?
Sure. This is a proposal to amend the Code of the Town of Barnstable, Part 1, General Ordinances, Chapter 240, Zoning, Article 4, Accessory Uses by repealing and replacing Section 240-46, Home Occupation, with a new Section 240-46, Home Occupation, that adds definitions, licensing, and requirements, and makes certain other revisions. This is a continued open public hearing from November 10th, 2025, so it does not need to be voted open.
Great, thank you. As mentioned, we have an open public hearing. Now, I wanted to start by mentioning that the board is in receipt of some public comment that came in via email. This was sent in from Chris Gregory, and this was sent in today, Monday, December 8th. All right, so we are in receipt of that. And I'm going to just give a little bit of background on this item and set the stage for this evening. This item is closely tied to our next item on the agenda, which is Town Council Item Number 2026-012, related to off-street storage of trailers and commercial vehicles. The board at our last meeting went through a rather thorough review of approximately half of the home occupation document, kind of going line by line, reading them, and offering thoughts and comments. We then paused to take public comment. There were many in the room that evening that wished to make public comment, and it was getting late, and we wanted to give them the opportunity to do that. So that was taken. We then took a recess, and when we came back, all members present came to the conclusion that, generally speaking, we are not in favor of offering a positive recommendation on either one of these zoning amendments back to Town Council. Rather than stopping there, we wanted to offer our due diligence to continue working through the draft home occupation document, as well as the revised version of the commercial vehicle parking. That is what we're here to do this evening. We have Building Commissioner Brian Florence present. And as we start to get into this, Brian, I would ask that you come forward to the podium and offer your expertise to answer questions, comments, concerns. Jim Kupfer is going to lead our review. So again, all members present at our last meeting expressed unanimous consent that the board is to send a negative recommendation on these items to the Town Council. However, our job here this evening is to continue our review because I feel strongly that the more we dig in and offer our comments, the better off Town Council will be in forging a path forward. In my opinion, I think the best way to go forward from here, and I'll get feedback in just a moment, would be to continue that review through Director Kupfer, then allow staff to read the minutes, watch the tape, and pull from that all of our feedback and turn that into a document, a staff report that will accompany our negative recommendation. I think that's the best way to do it. I think that would be a heavy lift to try and do this evening, so I would ask that staff works on that between now and the 22nd, giving us all a chance to read their draft, talk about it on the 22nd, and potentially vote and move that to Town Council. What do we think? Good plan? What do you think, Mary?
That sounds good. I
Okay.
think you've given enough, hopefully that's enough time for staff with holidays and everything.
They're super efficient.
I know you're going to work all through the holidays, day and night.
What do you think, Jim?
Absolutely. We'll take
Manageable
care of
lift?
it. No problem at
Look
all.
at that. Enthusiasm. I
Yep.
love it. Thank you, Mary Ray.
Why not?
Okay. Matt?
I like it, thank you.
Tim?
Makes sense to me.
Michael?
Yeah, I agree.
Catherine?
I agree.
Okay, we've got consensus, so we will dive in. So Jim, okay, we've got it here on the screen. This is about where we left off, correct?
Correct. So you're in section C14 at this point of the home occupation, which is generally the fourth page of the red line.
And as Jim digs in, I'd like members to take notes so that at the end we can express our comments. However, if there is any moment where you would like to stop and ask any questions or get clarification, ask a question of Building Commissioner Florence, please don't hesitate to speak up. Thank you.
Excellent. And so we have about just 3 pages left, and actually these 3 pages may go rather quick because the bulk of it is referring to a license that we're proposing to add here. So we started C14, or we ended at C14, so C15 is the next section. And as a reminder, everything in black is existing. We have an existing home occupation ordinance, and there's no changes proposed to anything in black. Red and in blue are those that are proposed to be changed and for consideration this evening. The next change here is in section C17, and it's just a formatting aspect of changing from C to E, as we've added an additional subsection, which we'll get to momentarily. 18 talks about the property on which the home occupation is located shall not serve as a park and ride, and that was added as that was a continued concern that was heard of residential properties, maybe not having active home occupations on site, but being used for a location for many cars to park and then going off-site to work. So we've added that.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Ray. Yes.
Jim, I just wanted, the term park and ride is fairly specific, like the Route 6 park and ride, you go and park and get on a bus and go off to Logan. I'm not sure is that an appropriate use of this term? I know we want to be concise, but as opposed to a place for workers to park, I think the complaint is that somebody has a landscape business, for example, and they have 6 or 8 guys that work for them, and you have 6 or 8 vehicles parked all around the neighborhood or blocking the street or something like that. So I like language, and I'm not sure if that's an appropriate use of that term.
Yeah, it's a great question. Is that in the definitions? Okay, go ahead, Jim.
Yep, you're right on the right track. So it is defined, park and ride, within the section. So actually the page before this, park and ride is a location in which drivers leave their vehicles to get into another vehicle to go to another location. Maybe that could be tightened up, certainly, but that's the definition that's provided. And I'm sure Brian Florence could provide more context if needed.
But the point is well taken, just to make that as tight as possible.
Yep.
Yeah, understood. Okay, thank you. Jim?
Moving to number 19, there shall be no more than 2 home occupations licensed on the premise. And so this is an additional, you'll see adding additional section. That's because, as it read prior, there wasn't a cap on home occupations, so now we are limiting that to 2 home occupations. Continuing on, now there are uses that we are specifically calling out that are not eligible, essentially, for home occupation. And again, the black is those uses that are already in the ordinance. We've edited it slightly to eliminate more language for essentially defining contractor storage yard here when we already have defined it. Cleaning up the subsection for fortune telling and palm reading. And now we move
Jim,
to...
sorry.
Yeah.
What does it mean when there's red text that's been crossed out?
That means we're proposing to eliminate.
So it was black.
It was black, and we are eliminating. So it's in
Okay.
the existing, and we're eliminating.
It turns red when you put a line through it.
I like that. That's a perfect explanation.
Magic.
All right. I get it. Thank you.
Okay. Next section is deed. So this is a brand new section, and this is the balance of the next page. So this is a proposal to add a license. So applicants shall be required to receive a home occupation license from the building commissioner or his designee for each home occupation located within a residence or on a residential property. And then we have a number of subsections, which I'm going to quickly read. All responsible parties shall make application to renew their home occupation license annually. Renewals are subject to approval and may be withheld for violations of the Barnstable Town Code, including but not limited to the requirements set forth in this section. A home occupation license shall be for a term of 1 calendar year, beginning on January 1. License fees shall not be prorated when obtained after January 1. Home occupation license shall include, at a minimum, the following information: a license number, name and photo of responsible party, the location of a home occupation, license plate numbers of all commercial vehicles associated with the home occupation, telephone number of responsible party, email address of the responsible party, location of the off-premise parking associated with the home occupation. The next section is a home occupation license may be revoked by the building commissioner or his designee for cause, including not limited to violation of the provisions of this section, providing false information in any application associated with the home occupation, parking business-associated vehicles in violation of what is allowed in this section, failing to register vehicles associated with the home occupation as required by subsection C4, and failure to timely communicate to the building commissioner or his or her designee during an enforcement action. Next section is a responsible party aggrieved by a decision by the building commissioner to this subsection D may appeal to the zoning board of appeals within 30 days of the decision. Appeals of the zoning boards shall be delivered in accordance with Mass General Law 4815.
Okay, let's pause here.
Yep.
D is kind of a big deal. Anytime we add a license to the town of Barnstable, I think that it's a big deal for me. You just want to go around and see if people have comments on this. I mean, for me, I think that it's not, I just don't think it's very realistic. I think this is going to be a huge challenge to get people to comply with this. I feel as though there'll just be a low compliance rate. I understand that when you think about how are you going to enforce this, you know, you need more zoning enforcement officers, and this is a great way to help pay for that, to bring in revenue to cover those expenses. But I just personally am not a big fan of an additional license, annual renewal. That's just my thought. So this is a very new section, so I did just want to pause and see if there's any other questions, comments, concerns. Tim?
I just want to jump in, and I want to hear from Commissioner Florence's experience with like a license process and a new license being proposed as part of a zoning amendment. You know, it's not typically something I would look into a zoning section to kind of find. It's more of sometimes a town general ordinance or some otherwhere. So I don't know if there's examples, you know, within the region, other towns or other parts in the state where similar things have worked within the zoning. And I'm just,
It's a good question.
would like to hear your thoughts on that.
Thank you.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, Brian Florence, your building commissioner, and to the board, thank you for your time this evening and for your work as volunteers for the community. To the degree that you can partially accept or reject any portion of this stuff, the licensing part is the part I would ask you to consider the most. And it's not just for, and it's not to pay, it's incorrect to say that we're looking to pay for the enforcement. That's not what this is about. What it's really about is to assist our business owners. I've said since I came to Barnstable that the majority of our businesses, and I talked about this, I spoke about this a little bit the last time I was with you folks, the majority of our businesses are in residential zoning districts. There are 650 brick and mortar business locations in Barnstable. There's thousands of businesses that are out in Barnstable, and most of them, the majority, vast majority, are in residential zoning districts. There's a little problem with that statistic, though. I can't tell you how many landscape companies there are. I can't tell you how many architects there are operating out of their home, or lawyers, or business people, whatever the business is. I can't tell you. The licensed product is designed to do that. It's to provide the statistics for the town council and for members who are asking questions about the businesses located in our residential zoning districts. So what this will do is it'll put the home occupation in our database. It'll allow us to separate out what businesses are located in the zoning districts that we have for residents. That's really what it's about. There is some enforcement teeth that this does that the registration doesn't do. So we already have a registration. It's the same information. You provide your name, your phone number, and all the details that we've asked here. We ask you for your vehicle information out of the gate. We don't know when a business closes. We've had houses in residential zoning districts where there have been 7 or 8 businesses registered to that property, but that have folded or come and gone, or the people have moved away. We can't track, and this is all about being able to track so that we can give accurate, honest information when we're asked, and so that we can help the folks that are out there in business. So it's not a money-generating scheme, and the fee is minimal. So.
Understood. Okay, now it's great context and information. I appreciate all that.
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
I failed to answer Mr. O'Neill's
Oh, sorry.
question.
Go ahead.
Can you restate your question specifically for me?
Sure, I was just wondering if there was context in maybe some other communities or other parts of the state where they've had a kind of a licensing program laid out in their zoning and not as a town or city municipal ordinance or something, just that it's in a zoning section.
I've said every town on the Cape has a home occupation registration. And most communities do because, like I said, most businesses are located in residence districts. So whether it's a license or a registration, I don't know. They mean the same thing. Ultimately, I'm using the term license because we anticipate issuing a card as opposed to putting a piece of paper in a file.
Yeah, okay, makes sense. Mary, anything?
Yeah, just a quick question for clarification. Is there no other way you can collect this data? There's no, where somebody opens up a business and then has to close a business where that information is collected?
I'm open to suggestions.
Oh, no, I'm
This is
just
what I
asking
came up with.
the question.
It's a good question.
Is there, if I went and I decided I wanted to open up a veterinary business, I would have to do that through the state, but there's nothing in the town that I would have to do. Is that correct?
That helps put some context behind your question. Thank
Yeah.
you. So there's a couple of different types of operations. So a person who has a DBA. So if you open a corporation or an LLC and you want to operate out of your home, you have to come to the building commissioner's office and you have to let them know what you're doing. You get a home occupation registration. If you're going to do a DBA, if you say you don't have a corporation and you're going to just operate as Mary Berry's hair salon, and you're in a district that allows you to do it out of your home, for example, you would go to, under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 110, you go to the town clerk's office and you file a business registration for DBA. A DBA is really just designed to provide identification for businesses in a community, and the state of Massachusetts set this Section 110 up so that people would register. But they don't have to do that if you're a corporation. If you're an LLC, you'd have to come to the building commissioner. You don't have to go to the clerk's office. So what we're doing captures it all, and we work with the town clerk on her business licenses as well, because we don't want Mary Berry's hair salon to go into a residential district, go file their DBA with the town clerk, and then only to find out that they aren't allowed in a residential zoning district for zoning purposes. So we work with the town clerk to make sure that business licenses and home occupations are all vetted.
That's helpful, thank you. I was just trying to figure out if there's another way around collecting. I love the fact that we need to have that data because it helps us in projection for the town for the long-term planning. I was just trying to figure out if there was another way to do it, but it sounds like that's what this licensing or registration would do.
How they normally get caught is when they go to the bank to apply for a checking account. So when I say caught, how a business owner
Is forced to register.
Is through the checking
Correct,
account.
yeah. Okay, thank you. Thanks for the clarification.
Makes sense. Ray, anything to add?
And DBA is doing business as, right?
Yes.
I always like to get the English before the acronym. I too have a basic issue here, and that issue is we're not enforcing what's on the books already in an efficient way. And now we're going to come up with new regs that, as you said, Mr. Chairman, I'm rather skeptical that have given the track record to date as far as enforcement. So then this stuff just lays there. I understand the need for data. That's great. As I think Mary's question is right to the point of, are there alternatives to levying yet another requirement on what are going to be small businesses? And to be honest with you, if in fact, for all the great reasons you just gave, this is absolutely necessary, I don't think it should cost. I think if you just register, and that's that. But to be honest with you, and you know better than me, you're the pro. I bet you, you could probably give me a percentage of how many folks that are running businesses out of their homes are actually registered. one way or another, unless they've got to take out a loan or something like that in order to run their business. It's the same, for example, with rental properties. You know, you're supposed to register your rental property. And I'm sure that a lot of good citizens register their rental properties. I bet there's some that don't. And so if there are problem properties, I bet you they'll be the ones that aren't registered. So I'm a little uneasy with yet another layer of administrivia and bureaucracy. At the same time, I see the reason it's important to be able to track things. So I don't necessarily disagree with you. I'm trying to figure out a way around the barn without costing small businesses anything more than they already have to do, and trying to minimize the amount of paperwork that they have to deal with.
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't have any issue with your opinion on matters, on the member's opinion on matters such as this, but I categorically reject the notion that enforcement is not taking place. We work very, very hard to make sure that our zoning enforcement is done professionally, efficiently, and effectively. We do a really good job, and there's a false narrative in the community that's not being done, and it's just not true. It is a false narrative. With respect to the cost wouldn't be much more than what is already here. There's a cost already to the registration program. It's already there. So the opinion of all of the rest of that, of the member's opinion, I have no problem with, and he's certainly entitled to his opinion. But we do a good job with our work. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, and I want to clarify. So,
Yes.
I mean, you're doing, as you said, you're doing the best that you can with the resources that you have. And I don't cast any aspersions on that. We have heard folks come in here and tell their stories. I will tell you, across the street from me, there's an unlicensed vehicle that's about 6 feet from the street, not in a shed, not screened, that's been sitting there for probably at least a year, maybe more. And
that's a police matter. That's a police matter, not a zoning or home occupation matter.
Okay, well, I saw it in the zoning regulation, actually.
Everybody does.
I mean, actually, well, it's in one of the other revised zoning amendments, so.
Chapter 228, it's a police matter.
Yeah. It is?
Yeah. Chapter 228 is zoning, of the ordinance,
Sure,
not
I'm
the
getting
zoning ordinance.
educated, I
Yeah,
guess.
no, and this is part of why this issue is so challenging, and they're
This
really.
is like,
No, I know, and there is no perfect solution. I mean, speaking to rentals and the registrations, I'm sure the percentage is quite low. Again, there's no perfect solution, and I appreciate the context and information. Just one quick thing I wanted to ask. I dread thinking about a small business that slips up, makes a mistake, and their license renewal is denied. So one of my biggest questions is, what avenues are there for reinstatement? Say I go and I apply for renewal, and it's rejected because I've broken the rules, and certainly I deserve that. Is there something in place where I can prove that I've made right on that mistake and I can be reinstated? Because the worst thing that can happen to a small business is to have their business not be able to occur. So any thoughts on reinstatement, how we can work with these folks?
Absolutely. I completely empathize with that question and concern. So if you look at our zoning, or our finding schedule under Article 1 of the ordinance, the first thing we can issue, or the first thing we must issue, is a warning. We must let the person know, look, you're in violation of the zoning ordinance for whatever, failing to register vehicles associated with your home occupation. Why don't you go ahead and take care of that? We'll see you in 14 days or 7 days or whatever that is. Come on in, bring your registration in. We're all set. And if for some reason you get someone who doesn't comply, then there's a fine. So you can issue a $100 fine. And after that, it's a $200 fine, and then a $300 fine. And then you can take other action. So there's plenty of warning in there that you need to fix this problem so that it doesn't continue to be a problem.
Great. No, that's great to hear.
And then if there is a revocation, they can always reapply, and we can, at that point, put down some stricter regulations to make sure that they don't, or some, what's a better way of saying, some controls in place.
Sure.
I guess is the best way to put it.
Understood, understood. Anything else from this side before we continue? Matt?
I think, Mr. Chairman, if you could, is there a difference in state law in terms of enforceability with regard to the term license versus registration?
I don't know. I'm not going to answer that. That's a legal question, but my understanding is they're one and the same.
Okay. The second question, one of the references we just had in the reading of the document was, in essence, we're issuing I'll use the term permit. Is that different than license? License, permit, registration. Has anyone looked into helping some of these small businesses should they want to operate to the letter of the law in terms of revising the statutory requirements for septic flow, bedroom count, right? If I'm going to designate a portion of my home as a business person to a office, showroom, whatever that is, right? The current Title V regulation says that my flow rate's 100 gallons per 1,000 square feet of space. In a house, it's 110 gallons per day per bedroom. The reason I ask this is if someone was to add a room onto their house and put doors on it, it's not an office, it's a bedroom, right? 70 square feet, light and ventilation, that sort of thing. I think I could support some concept of this were we to make accommodations to allow this to be less egregious, right? Currently under the nitrogen loading requirements we have and those other restrictions, should someone want to, again, come in, get a license, pull up a building permit for a small addition on their house or otherwise and finish that room, you can't have an office, right? So again, we're issuing permits. Part of the permit or the licensing process is that all of the various regulations are supported or met, right? Health being one of them. But we're adding a room to a building or we're changing the use of a room in a residential structure. Why should that not also relieve the requirement to, say, expand a septic system?
Okay.
I'm just following down the road where this ends up.
But this is Mr. Chairman, this is a perfect example of somebody who's done a lot of construction. This has nothing to do with building an addition on your house. I've been in this business for 28 years, if you will, and I think I may have seen one instance where somebody built a room on their house for their home occupation. This assumes that you're operating out of your home, your existing home, and that you're not going to be opening up a showroom and that type of thing in your home. If you look at the preamble to the home occupation, it says existing, in your home. It assumes that you're not going to have any employees there. It assumes you're not going to be public to the site. It's not that type of business where you would, it's not type of situation where you're going to need extra flow for a septic system.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
I have one other.
Yep, go ahead.
Again, I think to Mr. O'Neill's point, if the town clerk's office already issues a business license, and I understand that's for the DBA component, right? I totally understand the identification component. Why wouldn't this be under the general ordinance and just make a condition of that licensure be a similar procedure to what we're talking about here?
Because the clerk has nothing to do with anything that's an incorporation, LLC, or home occupation. She's just dealing with business licenses for people who operate under a name other than their business. So if you operate as, if you're a sole proprietor, Matthew Tigg, and you operate as Mary Berry's Hair Salon, you have to register. You can't go unnoticed in the town as a business entity, or unidentified, I should say.
Thank you.
Makes sense. Anything on this side?
I'll just have a quick question to Commissioner Florence. What is the current home registration, the registered home business? How much does that registration cost?
I'm not sure right offhand. I think it's in the area of $50.
It's like kind of like an application fee or so.
Yeah.
Is it handled through the online permitting portal?
Yes, it is now. It wasn't until 2 years ago.
Okay. And with this is something that, same thing, it would probably be a similar type of permit fee, and done on an annual basis. So like somebody buys a dump sticker within the town, they have to go get a new one every year through their kind of online login. This is, kind of a similar intent.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That was it.
Yeah, good question. Anything else?
He answered my question.
Okay. very
Thanks.
nice.
Yes, hi, I have a couple of questions. Is the license based on proven income from a business, or is
No.
it a flat fee?
No income, no.
And why do you feel that business registration is not enough?
The registration process was a paper process. In 2020 through 2025, we digitized every record in our department, in the health department, and shredded every document that we had. So now, as we've just discussed, all of the applications, as I just answered for Mr. O'Neill, all of the applications come through our online portal, and you can call it a license, call it registration, whatever you want. We're going to be issuing a card as opposed to putting a piece of paper in a file, so we're calling it a license.
So there's no longer a registration. The licenses would supersede the registrations?
It's the same thing. It's just they're giving us their name and their information and telling us where it's located, and we're going to give them a card instead of putting a piece of paper. Registration is the paper, the card is what we're calling a license.
So, and forgive me for not knowing this, but if an artist has a studio in their home where they're painting and they sell their work on Main Street in Chatham, is that considered a home occupation? Is that person required to register?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's nothing new. Our ordinance has already done that. It's done it since 1929.
But the licensing is new.
It's the same thing. It's a register. We can call it a registration and get rid of the word license if the town council decides that that's what they would like to do. It's all the same information. All of even the regulations that say you can't. Can you scroll up a little bit? All right, no, not that far. All right, down a little more. Home occupation shall be revoked. So violation of provisions of the section. I can already take the registration away. I'm the zoning enforcement officer. This is a zoning ordinance. Providing false information in the application, I can already revoke it for that. I'm just putting this out here so that the people, when they read this, they understand it. I want to make it very clear for our citizens that open businesses in Barnstable, that these are the rules behind it. You're going to get a license for it, or you're going to get a registration, whatever we want to call it.
I guess there's a knee jerk a little bit to a license.
Well, it's
I don't know,
semantics, but okay.
It is semantics, yes.
Yeah.
I know, as a rental owner, I have to register my rental in order to be able to list it on Airbnb. It's a
Sure.
requirement.
Yeah.
If they said licensing, it would be, it is semantics to me.
Was a really good question, though. I mean, the question why the change is a great question. So I appreciate you asking that.
And it really boils down to, we want to give somebody something tangible, give them a card, something that they can have, and
Well, and as you mentioned, this has language that offers for more enforceability, more teeth, which speaks to a lot of the complaints that have come from the public, rightfully so. But good question. Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
But to just chew on this just a little bit longer. So if I understand you, the town clerk is basically the central intake point for many businesses in order to get licenses to operate. But what your point is that there are the home occupation type businesses do not have to register or get licenses from the town clerk?
I don't want to have to be in a position to defend Massachusetts General Law 110 or the clerk's regulations, because that's not fair for me to be put in that position. I don't know.
Just
the
educate
bottom
me.
line, though, is whether the town clerk takes a business license in or somebody opens a home occupation, they all have to come and get a zoning check to make sure that they're not trying to operate Mary Berry's Hair Salon in a place where they can't do it.
Okay, and as such, Mr. Chairman, so unfortunately, one of the things I did in my glorious career was to actually address the information sharing disaster that resulted in September 11th among federal agencies and create an information sharing environment. That's a fancy word.
I like that.
But The bottom line is, and I think it talks to Mary's point, but what I'm looking at is, can the town clerk, and I'm asking you a question because you're the pro. It seems to me the town clerk could be the central intake point, and then the town has to work to ensure that that information is shared with the appropriate entities responsible for enforcing or administering what various aspects of that, including things that Matt brought up. So I'm just wondering if we, instead of, this is the kind of thing that this is one cluster, and then we have another cluster over here, and that's how we ended up with September 11th, because the clusters don't talk to each other. And I'm asking, is in your experience, in your expertise, is there another way around the barn to be able to share the information that is currently being collected in one shape or another, and would there have to be any modifications to the types of information collected if we could have a central intake point and then share it out?
Mr. Chair, if I may, through you.
Yes.
To answer your question. I am that central point. The building commissioner is the central point, and our system that we use, our software, OpenGov permitting software, is the central point. So if somebody goes to the town clerk for a business license, because they have to do that for a DBA, it's a Massachusetts general law, they don't have any there's no option to that. They have to do that. They still come to my office to see if what they're doing is allowed in a zoning district that they're going in.
Okay.
The home occupations, they come to me. I do this every Friday morning with our permit coordinator, Maggie Flynn, and we go through all of the DBAs and the business licenses and all the home occupations that come into town that week, and I review every single one of them. There's this narrative out there that people are slipping through the cracks all over the place, and that doesn't happen. That is not true. We catch them all. They all come to us.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, great. All right, so I've got some great notes, and that was a great discussion on Section D. Let's keep it rolling. Jim, if you want to continue on to what's up next.
All right, so we have completed this section, and we're moving to our new Section E, which is special permit requirements. So everything you have reviewed to date is the by right requirements of home occupation, and there are some exceptions that if you wanted to go slightly above and beyond what was originally listed, you may be considered at the Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit. And so A, B, and C are already in black, again, already text as part of our home occupation ordinance. D has been struck and later referred to, but D I'll read aloud. Zoning Board of Appeals may allow the parking of one work vehicle capable of being operated under Massachusetts Class B license related to the home occupation by special permit. All parking generated by the use by special permit shall be accommodated off-street, screened by a physical or natural barrier so not to be seen from a public way. So that is struck. And then on Section E, it's more of a cleanup, but I'll read the Section E as a whole. The Zoning Board of Appeals may allow a home occupation use to be located within an accessory structure, which may occupy greater than 200 square feet of the accessory structure on the same lot as the primary residential dwelling unit occupied by the applicant, provided that at no time shall the use within the accessory structure occupy an area within an accessory structure that is greater than 25% of the square footage of the primary residential dwelling unit occupied by the applicant. And lastly, F, an additional commercial vehicle and or a trailer associated with a second home occupation. So first one strikes the language of one per home occupation, and F refers to allowing potentially for a second vehicle by special permit. And so again, if you look back at the original section or the earlier section, we talk about how you may have up to 2 home occupations potentially on site. Here saying that by special permit you could have 2 commercial vehicles associated with both of those one per home occupation.
And Jim, the special permit granting authority is the Zoning Board of Appeals?
Zoning Board of Appeals, correct.
Okay, thank you.
And then that is the balance of the changes.
Wow, we did it. Okay.
Could you scroll up to the just above that, right there? Okay, so I was just looking at D again to see what was struck there. So essentially what this says now is the max number of vehicles would be 2 because there are the 1 for each home occupation, and the max number of home occupations allowed is 2.
That is correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, excellent. No, that's great. So, Jim, I did just want to ask one procedural item. Are we able to open Town Council number 2026-012 before we continue 008? Or should we continue 008 first? They're just so, we will, yeah.
It's funny, that's the kind
I
of question
just-
I asked at the last meeting. I'm like, there's this whole other thing
They're
that's
so
intertwined
connected.
with this.
But you know what, yeah, we'll go by the book. We'll take public comment now, continue our discussion on 008, then we'll continue that. I mean, we've got a lot of great comments and discussions, and then we'll get into 012. So, board okay going to public comment? Okay, all right, so we'll take public comment at this time. This is on, again, Town Council item number 2026-008. Welcome, thank you.
Thank you, Eric Schwab, Hyannis. I've probably made more calls to inspectional services than any human being alive. So I know this ordinance pretty well, and this rewrite is not helpful, and this just goes to prove if I come to enough of these meetings, Stephen and I actually agree on something. But some of the holes are, one was just discussed, this notion that you can have 2 businesses at one address. That's a big problem because suddenly you have twice as many trucks and twice as many equipment, and the excuse for it is, well, we got 2 businesses. You know, my son has his own business now. That's not right. If you're going to have a second business at one address, it needs to go through a special permit, and the planning board needs to decide whether or not it's appropriate. I don't think you can say, no, you can't do it, but it should trigger a planning board review as to what's going on. There are a number of other issues. This is about false equivalency, that a truck and a trailer is 2 commercial vehicles, and therefore we should write it so it's 2 commercial vehicles. That shouldn't be the case. A truck and a trailer are 2 very different entities, and if you say, oh, it's just 2 commercial vehicles, you're going to end up with 2 vans with 14 ladders on top of them in every residential driveway. So you really have to look at the language and understand that the current zoning is actually pretty good. It's just not being enforced to the letter, okay? It's being enforced, but it's not being enforced to the letter. And that's what's causing the conflicts, right? So you've got someone with a 2.5-ton truck. You know, it's not allowed, but it's there. It's been there for years. Getting that 2.5-ton truck out of that driveway is an enforcement matter. And so you need to think about, how do you move from a complaint-driven system to a proactive licensing system, okay? How do we make that transition? This does not accomplish that, okay? So just hypothetically, you file a DBA with the clerk, but you still have to register your business, okay? And that includes whether or not it's operated as an LLC or as an Inc. Okay, it really shouldn't matter. If you're operating a business in the town of Barnstable, the town of Barnstable should know that, right? Just so they have the statistics, if nothing else. Now, if you make that fee $140, $170 and make it annually renewable, no one's going to do it, okay? So the way this deal is structured right now, it's too expensive to comply, right? You're not going to go out of your way to let the town know that you're operating a business and write them a check for $170. You're just not going to do it. It's against human nature. So I agree with you regarding
About a
this whole
minute
idea
remaining.
of a license. Finally, you really need to run this by the people that live in the neighborhoods, okay? The Quality of Life Committee, when it was formed, promised a citizen review of these regs. It was promised in August of this year. It never happened. These regs have not stood public scrutiny. You were supposed to go out into the public and hold a meeting and defend these changes and incorporate recommendations from the community into these regulations. That never happened. And that's why you had, 140, oyster farmers here who thought that you were going to take their trailers away from them, right? That's why that happened. It happened because you weren't talking to the community, and they could have saved you a lot of time. So as you make a negative recommendation, I respectfully ask that you also advise the town council that this has not gone through a public review and that your board should not be used for that. That they need to go to the civic associations where these matters are properly handled.
Coming up on 4 minutes.
We're all set. Thank you, sir. You have a great
Okay,
night.
thank you. Appreciate your comments. Okay, public hearing is still open again on 2026-008. Let's do the rest of public comment, then do response. Any additional public comment? Okay, seeing none. Board, any response to public comment? Matt?
I've heard it mentioned twice tonight, but what is the Quality of Life Committee, and do we have access to any meeting notes from that?
That's a good question. Jim, could you answer that?
Yep. So that is a administrative working group that was established by the town council, and it's led by our assistant town manager, Andy Clyburn, and a number of department heads. We were tasked by town council. I sit on that group. We were tasked by town council a number of enforcement-related matters to look at those and come up with suggested amendments to those ordinance, regulations, what have you, that may better the enforcement concerns that had been brought forward to town council. So as we, as administrators, heard the concerns, we've looked at the existing regulations that are in place, so that being not just home occupation, not just commercial vehicle parking. There's been discussions about noise. There's been discussions. There's been several other discussions. There's been discussions about how customer service and how we can better our interrelation on enforcement. And so we are progressing on a number of fronts. There is no avenue for public comment through an administrative group. And that was one of the concerns that we brought forward as well. And I think we discussed that at the last meeting, that perhaps this does need further public review. And honestly, that is one of the reasons why I asked for a zoning and regulatory subcommittee to be established by the town council, which they accepted that and established that. So that's what that group is.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, appreciate that education. Any any response from the board, public comment? Catherine?
I actually, Mr. Schwab brought up a really good point. In a second occupation in one house, zoned residentially, one home occupation seems appropriate. A second occupation does start to change the profile of the residential home neighborhood. So it does bear consideration that it would go before a zoning board for consideration for a second occupation in a home.
Yeah, good thought, good comments. Appreciate that. Anything else? Okay. So let's talk about our next meeting. Our next meeting is on December 22nd, 2025. At this time, that meeting currently only has one item on the agenda, which is the map revision, which was forwarded from our last meeting. Karen, Jim, Kyle, anything else on that agenda that you're aware of at this time?
Maybe just one A&R, but we should have a wide open meeting, hopefully. Well, I don't want to jinx it, but.
Sure. Yeah, and again, as we previously discussed, I think allowing staff a chance to collect all of these comments from this board, from the public, and put it into a report to town council that would go with our negative recommendation. I don't think there's going to be a long review at that meeting on the 22nd, so I think it's appropriate that we could continue it to that date and potentially get that done. So, with that, we'll leave the public hearing open to allow the public to respond to that draft, which will be posted the week before. And is everyone okay with continuing that to December 22nd? Seeing no objection, I'd seek a motion.
I would move to continue.
Zoning amendment TC, item number 2026.
Well, you guys can't
Dash
go make a motion.
008.
We'll give it to Mary. We'll give it to Mary.
It's a collaboration.
Team effort over
I
there.
I move to continue zoning amendment, town council item number 2026-008 to December 22nd.
Yes.
Planning board meeting at 7 o'clock.
Ray, you want the second?
Second.
There it is. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Mary?
Aye.
Ray?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Catherine?
Aye.
And myself, C. Robichaud, votes aye. Moving on to our next zoning amendment for review this evening, which is Town Council item number 2026-012. Mary, would you like to read this one?
Sure. Town council item number 2026-012, proposal to amend the Code of the Town of Barnstable, Part 1, General Ordinance, Chapter 240 Zoning, Article V, Accessory Uses by repealing sections 240-45, which is off-street storage and trailer, off-street storage of trailers, and replacing it with a new section, which is 240-45, which is off-street parking and storage of commercial vehicles, trailers and mobile homes. And this is continued from the September 22nd and the November 10th meeting.
Excellent, thank you, Mary. And as mentioned, this is a continued open public hearing from November 10th. So again, same discussion as our prior item. This one, we actually did not begin our review. This one's quite a bit shorter, but again, I'm going to let staff lead this discussion. Director Kupfer will guide us through the changes. We'll have Commissioner Florence available for discussion. Jim?
All right, excellent. Thank you very much. So yes, moving on to 240-45 commercial vehicle parking. So the existing ordinance, and I'll just read it in full, 240, because it's one paragraph, don't worry. Section 240-45, off-street storage of trailers, simply states that a mobile home may be stored in a garage or other accessory building or on the rear half of a lot owned or occupied by the owner of the mobile home. The location of the mobile home shall comply with the yard requirements of the zoning district in which it is located. So it really just addresses mobile homes. What this suggestion for commercial vehicle parking does is replace that and incorporate the mobile home discussion, but expand that discussion to commercial vehicles, commercial trailers, and mobile homes. So essentially we found a home for it in the general ordinance, in the zoning ordinance. And so I will quickly go through the ordinance itself. As the chairman mentioned, it is rather short. So the purpose and intent. So the purpose of this section is to limit the number of commercial vehicles, trailers, and mobile homes as defined herein, which are allowed to be parked and or stored on residential properties to reduce safety hazards, prevent the disruption of traffic, and maintain character and appearance of residential neighborhoods. That's section A. Section B, we go on to define a residential lot, a mobile home or recreational vehicle, a trailer, a commercial vehicle.
Jim, sorry, just real quick. Is the definition of trailer where it explains that we're not talking about boat trailers?
That's correct. So that is the recommended change that would go back to town. Well, if the planning board so chooses to continue on with that discussion, the recommendation to date has been that we will recommend to town council that it expressly states that it is for trailers associated with the commercial vehicle, and it does not relate or has regulatory authority over boat storage or boat trailers. That's a completely different section of our ordinance.
Understood. Okay, thank you for that. Ray, sorry, go
I'm
ahead.
not tracking here. So that's in the definition of trailer?
So, no, so that's the cleanup that we discussed a while back,
Okay.
is that we heard from the public.
Yes.
Clearly, there was a misunderstanding.
Is
We
that
needed-
further down in the,
No, there's no additional red lines at this time.
Okay.
This is the first time you're going through the
Okay.
document itself.
All right.
But any recommendation back, I think it's already been stated by the planning board that you will offer that recommendation back to town council, that
Yes.
that needs to be specified
Right.
very
Thanks,
clearly.
Jim.
Very
Yes.
clearly, yeah.
Thank you for that. So continuing on, trailer, commercial vehicle. So again, defining commercial vehicle, defining driveway, and defining a prohibited vehicle. The next section, we talk about permitted uses as of right in all zoning districts, and we discuss the different types, and I'll just quickly read each of those different types. Mobile homes. Mobile homes may be stored in a driveway, garage, or other accessory building or on the rear half of a lot owned or occupied by the owner of the mobile home, provided that the mobile home is parked on the rear half of a lot. It shall not encroach upon the minimum yard setback requirements of the zoning district in which it is located. Trailers, so again, we'll have to specify and mimic that of the definition, commercial trailers. One trailer that does not exceed 20 feet in length and does not have more than has more than 4 tires that may be parked on a residential lot at any given time. Commercial vehicles, a maximum of 2 commercial vehicles may be parked at any given time on a residential property. If any commercial vehicles are authorized in connection with a duly licensed home occupation under section 24046, such commercial vehicles shall be counted towards the maximum of the 2 allowed hereunder. So that's that connection between the 2 ordinances. A home occupation at this time is proposed to have up to 2. This would allow or match that language there, but you wouldn't be able to have that home occ plus additional commercial vehicles. Unregistered vehicles, a maximum of 1 unregistered motor vehicle may be parked or stored on a residential lot at any given time, provided that such vehicle is parked or stored in an enclosed structure or is otherwise screened so that it is not visible from the street.
all right, break.
Okay,
Okay,
go ahead, Ray.
that's a zoning ordinance. Right?
Which
So
one?
why you tell me that the police have to do it?
Chapter 228 is unregistered vehicles.
This is proposed zoning, too.
This is proposed.
We're talking about zoning that doesn't currently exist, so.
Well, wait a minute, I think it's in black.
This whole thing is in black.
You're talking about number 4 there?
Yeah,
Bullet number 4, unregistered vehicles?
yeah,
That's not currently in the zoning ordinance.
It's not?
This is proposed.
okay. Is it not in currently?
It's not, no, sir.
Should have put
Sir?
the whole thing in red, Jim.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
my apologies. My preamble, again,
beat
is
the
that this is a
director.
new or
Colored printer was broken that day.
yes, we could have done the whole. in
Take
red.
them out and have them flogged. Okay, then I stand corrected.
Goodness.
My understanding was that this was the existing ordinance, and therefore, if it was a zoning ordinance, it should be enforced. If in fact it is not on the books right now, then I guess you can't enforce it.
Understood. Okay. Jim, go ahead.
All right. Notwithstanding any provisions herein in the contrary, vehicles temporarily on the premises due to ongoing permitted building on site or site work at the premises are allowed. So that was as of right, as I mentioned, this is permitted uses requiring a special permit. So any commercial vehicle in excess of 2 shall require a special permit granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals. So that's a similar conversation we were having earlier with HOMOC. Now this is potentially more than 2. The Zoning Board of Appeals shall not authorize more than 3 commercial vehicles on 1 residential property. And then lastly, trailers of 20 feet or more in length or having more than 4 tires and construction vehicles, including but not limited to backhoes, bulldozers, and dump trucks are prohibited from being parked or stored on a residential lot, provided that such vehicles temporarily on the premises due to ongoing permitted building or site work at the premises are allowed. And now there's two subsections to this. Commercial vehicles and trailers shall not be parked on grass, lawn, or landscaping, except that mobile home may be parked on grass on the rear half of the lot, subject to the provisions above, CA1. And prohibited vehicles shall not be parked on residential property. So prohibited vehicles that we're just discussed, not on residential properties.
Okay.
That's the balance.
All right, thank you for that. I have some initial comments I wanted to mention, but I wanted to give Commissioner Florence the floor if there's anything you wanted to add to this to lead off.
I didn't. I'm going to be talking to folks just to get this unregistered thing out of that ordinance. But anyway, besides that, because it doesn't belong there, I don't have any authority to look at the registry of motor vehicles thing. But I did want to address something that was brought up in the last section. It was during response to public comment, so I didn't think it was appropriate for me to get up and make a distinction.
Okay.
Right now, there is no limit to the number of home occupations you can have on a property. None. So you could literally, that's why I said, there's instances where there are 7 home occupations registered. By limiting it to 2, we were attempting to limit it. When you start talking about going to the Zoning Board of Appeals, you're talking about a very costly endeavor. So if somebody is an accountant and another person is, a real estate broker, and they want to have home occupation in their home, to go to the zoning board for that second one, you have to have a survey done. So that's how many thousands of dollars. You need an attorney to represent you at the Zoning Board of Appeals, and you have the Zoning Board of Appeals application, which is not a inexpensive endeavor. So when you say, we want to make sure the second one is a special permit, you're talking about costing that second business a lot of money just to operate a home office. So that said, right now, that whole purpose was to limit it to 2 as opposed to unlimited.
Mr. Chairman, can I respond?
Absolutely.
I guess my concern is that one size doesn't fit all. It's fine, an accountant and a real estate agent is one thing, but a landscaper and a hairdresser in one residentially zoned home in a neighborhood has a different ballywick to the neighborhood. So I guess that's where my agreement with Mr. Schwab came from, is that there could be a lot of traffic, whereas an accountant in real estate wouldn't necessarily have a lot of influx on the neighborhood.
If anybody could show me how you make a zoning ordinance that fits every situation.
Well, don't we have something in there that states that there shall be no increase in the amount of traffic?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
what it
clearly
is.
outlined, yeah. So that speaks to that. But, great point. Yep. I wrote down a few things just to start the discussion. For me, I'm going to be very honest that I just don't know what the limit or number of maximum commercial vehicles should be on a property. I just don't know what that should be. And I think that, for me, that comes down to the fact that using that one-size-fits-all conversation, again, we have quarter-acre, eighth-acre lots here in Hyannis, and we have 3-acre lots in Marston's Mills. So it's so hard, I think, to come up with some regulation that fits between those two properties. So it's almost like something needs to relate to the square footage of the lot or the available space, but it's got to be done fairly and equitably. So it's a very, very difficult conversation. I feel that I brought this up before. I don't like stating. Can you scroll down to the bottom, all the way to the bottom? I think it's the second to last item. The second one there, number 2, commercial vehicles and trailers shall not be parked on grass, lawn, or landscaping. Again, those items there, grass, lawn, landscaping, many different people would define those in different ways. And we see vehicles parked on what some people would consider to be a lawn that feels totally appropriate. So I have an issue with that. And I feel that all of this should, it may already do this, but I feel very strongly that it must exclude boats and recreational vehicles. So boat trailers and not just boat trailers. Now, we talked about that, but when you're talking about recreational vehicles such as four-wheelers, go-karts, dirt bikes, side-by-sides, I don't think that we should be limiting what residents do with those. If they have the means to purchase those and they wish to do so, I don't feel like we should be holding them back and consider those to be more leisure and hobby things, and I don't think it's our business to regulate that. Mary?
I think the words commercial vehicle would solve that issue, right?
For sure.
So
Yeah.
if you've got a boat or you've got snowmobiles or 4x4s, and if it's not a commercial vehicle or commercial trailer, that won't be restricted.
Agreed, yeah.
that right?
Yeah,
The
great
definition
point.
of
So
that?
just making sure that commercial vehicle is, the language is consistent throughout, and I do worry about saying commercial trailers because somebody might have a commercial trailer with a boat on it that's used for business. So making sure that we're super, super clear about that. Yeah, so just tightening it up.
Yeah, I will jump in that some of my initial concerns when we talked about the last hearing was also that. I mean, the intention here is commercial vehicles and large trailers, dump trailers, things with, big excavators chained down to them, big 10-wheel dump trucks. That's kind of one thing, but then in some of these definitions, it can be kind of misconstrued if it just says, oh, well, banning trailers of a certain length or something like that, and okay, you have somebody who has a bunch of snowmobiles on a 25-foot-long trailer, it's just, it needs to be kind of a really tight, narrow paths on, exactly how this is handled, so that it can't be misconstrued.
Yeah.
And
Well said.
we
Yeah.
heard from the public about that,
Yes.
the length of the trailers and, the commercial fishermen and stuff like that. I thought we also, I think your memory was well served. We were talking about the one-size-fit-all conundrum.
Yeah.
And that we would maybe, I thought that was one of the to-dos. I'm after you tonight, Jim. I thought we were going to try to come up with some kind of language to say what's a reasonable ratio of, for example, parking it behind the front of the house. If you park them to the rear of the house, just like the language for the mobile home.
Yeah.
And if you park it behind the house, on the grass, whatever, it's out of sight, it's
Right.
appropriately screened,
Yeah.
something or other like that. I think we heard pretty loud and clear is we don't want to, we do want to try to preserve the character and of the neighborhoods, but we also don't want to be extraordinarily onerous to the small businesses in doing this.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah, for
it's gonna differ between Hyannis and Marston's Mills, for example.
Yeah, well said. Believe it or not, for my belief, I feel there's a more reasonable path to the home occupation, getting that done than this one. I think this is the harder one only because it's just so difficult. I feel like when town council digs back into this is going to be, there's going to have to be a lot of research and time spent on this. What are other towns and municipalities doing? How do they define it? How have they laid it out? So I just think that there's so much work that needs to be done, and I don't think it's something that can be quickly thrown together.
Can I ask staff a question, Mr. Chairman?
Absolutely, yes.
Are the aquacultures protected? Are they federally protected from these exemptions?
State, that's a state exemption.
Okay, but they are protected from if we have any restrictions on trailers and so on, they are protected from these restrictions?
Anything that's listed under the exemptions of Mass General Law, Chapter 43, 40A, Section 3, aquaculture, viticulture, horticulture, and there's a list of them there.
Education, stuff like that.
Right.
So that's something that we might as well just mention in this, and should be in our staff report, just that exemption should be noted. Yeah.
We did
Thank
have
you.
that discussion as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think part of that's just like also a good perception thing, because when some of the stuff goes out, and I think that's kind of what happened the first iteration of this and the home occupation, like the boat gate, we had like the room packed and everyone with
Yeah.
it was like, okay, again, perception thing is even if it doesn't have any bearing on this, even if it goes out on a staff report of, okay, when it kind of goes out and, people pick up on it, seeing that, oh, that's already exempt, the agricultural, the aquaculture, some of that stuff just kind of helps.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, that exemption may be out there, but people may not be aware of it, so just getting it in writing helps a lot. Any additional questions, comments, concerns, discussion before we go to public comment and look to get this one continued as well? Some good comments so far. Anything on this side?
I just,
Go ahead.
Again, to your point, when we really need to get the home occupation and this one really tightly linked, because they're inextricable.
Agreed.
And so, to that point, and I don't know how we, and again, how we approach the differences in the town, village by village and
Well,
situation by situation.
Agreed, and I think, again, that's why we're not the only town that's likely dealt with this. So I know that there's a lot out there that we could pull from, R&D, rob and duplicate, so
Yeah.
there you go.
I believe that.
You like that?
Looking at you, Jim, was it Orleans that just tabled a new zoning ordinance on boats?
Oh, was it? I know Yarmouth
Dennis,
just made
or
a, Yarmouth just had a vote at their town meeting to
Yeah.
adjust theirs.
And it was
So-
in front of the house, I guess it is, right?
Yes, yep.
And there will be apparently, you have to get a permit to do it, but it will
Interesting.
be allowed as opposed to not allowed.
Understood, okay. All right, anything else from this side? Okay, over here? Okay, anything over here?
I strongly agree with your statement, Mr. Chairman. This is very complex, and I agree that there is no such thing as one size fits all. If I have the space to park it, I think, the town shouldn't tell me how many, if I do have the space to park. And this will require a lot of work because, again, I have friends that have 3 acres and live in Martha's Mills, and they have their business, and they have the space to, it's put a fence. And again, I agree with your statement, and I think we should do more research on this. I don't feel comfortable with this.
Yeah, well said. Thank you, Michael. Tim, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, this is a complex issue, as all the other board members have said, and, we also need to remember the public comment we've received at the first hearing, besides the boat stuff, is there is a lot of concern in town. And it's not just, we all keep on using the same reference points of, okay, 1/8 acre, 1/4 acre lot somewhere in Hyannis or something. I mean, there's some people even talking on, Centerville or Edge of the Mills out on Race Lane of, oh, there's some plumber HVAC guy who has 8 vans in his front yard. He's like kind of, turned a more moderate size residential property even to kind of more of a commercial property. So, and everyone agreed in the room of, okay, well, that's a concern, but how does that, something that, again, the one size fits all of zoning approach is difficult to take here. So I think one thing that everyone can agree on is there's a line somewhere of how many commercial vehicles. Okay, we don't want to inhibit businesses, small businesses from starting. We don't want to inhibit, the high school kid from buying a pickup truck and a couple of lawnmowers and a little trailer from mowing all the neighbors' lawns. But we also can't allow residential properties to turn into little commercial outposts and having, fleets of dump trucks and bobcats and lawnmowers and big heap of mulch out back and, all the daily trips in and out. So there's a line there somewhere. And then, okay, we need to, someone needs to figure out what that line is. And then how do we regulate that? And one thing that, I don't know if Commissioner Florence would agree with this, when you get zoning into kind of starting to regulate how a property or how a structure or how our thing is used, well, that gets difficult because one size fits all approach. What zoning is really good at regulating is, well, the building, the form, the setbacks, the screening requirements, and kind of tying things to each other. So if you look at other towns like Yarmouth, who, the weird thing about that is, like, Yarmouth had the boat storage thing on their zoning books forever, where you couldn't store a boat on your property unless it was, like, further back than the building, So they tied something to something on the lot and pushed it back to mitigate those impacts. So, you start kind of thinking of, is that a better approach of all of this? Of, okay, you are allowed X amount of commercial things or stuff, but it needs to be behind a building, or it needs to be screened in a certain fashion, or it needs to be located here, or that, to kind of give some guidance, because that can apply to the small houses and the small lots. It can also apply to the I mean, we keep on saying, okay, you got 3, 4, 6 acres of Mars's Mills. Well, there's nothing saying you can't clear cut it and turn it into a big commercial yard anyway. So, you know, we're kind of have been banking on people just being good neighbors. So maybe it's time that instead of kind of going through this, we're defining what it means to be a good neighbor and talk about screening and stuff like that.
And be fair.
Yeah.
You know.
Be fair, yes.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
just my outsider looking in of, you know, maybe a better way to build this from the ground up is, you know, in that light.
Yeah, I mean, I personally do like that approach a lot because, again, if you have the space and you have the room, Michael mentioned a friend that has 3 acres,
Right.
and you do it in a reasonable, respectful manner that has no impact on your neighbors by proper screening, then I feel like, you know, that property could do that. So, yeah, I do like that approach.
But to Tim's point, that's good, but it also helps to give some structure
Yeah,
to
there's
that.
still got to be a limit.
Good fences make good neighbors.
Well said. Okay. Anything else? All set? Okay, so again, same approach. We do have the capacity at our December 22nd meeting to review the document staff is going to work up. Had some great discussion tonight. Let's go to public comment. Again, the public hearing is open. Public comment. Welcome, Mr. Schwab. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric Schwab, Hyannis. I'll be quick. If you go to C3 real quick.
C3.
Prohibited vehicles.
Is that it?
It's in the definitions. Okay.
There it is, yeah.
When I saw this, I almost fell off my chair. Okay? Where the hell did we get 2 commercial vehicles in a residential neighborhood? Right now, we got 1 truck and 1 trailer, and that's bad enough. And now you're going to allow 2 commercial trailers on a 10,000 square foot lot? They have 5,000 square foot lots in downtown Hyannis. Okay? So that has to change. To your point regarding dimensional zoning is what it's called. Dimensional zoning, if you got the space and you can buffer it sufficiently, you should be able to do what's reasonable. But then you need to have in your home occupation code very specific language about lights, about buffer zones, hedges, everything that you consider when you consider putting a Wendy's in a residential neighborhood, you need to consider for these home occupations, right? A 6-foot stockade fence is not going to be sufficient to shield you from a dump truck. It just isn't, okay? So you can put in a row of arborvitae in 5 years, it might be 8 feet, but that's better than a stockade fence that's going to fall down in 7 years, because they don't last long, and they're not the first expense that a business owner wants to take on, replacing a stockade fence. So again, consider dimensional zoning, consider buffers, light intrusion. It's very important that you write light intrusion into this, because if everything you own is in your trucks, you're going to put a light on it in Hyannis, okay? And that light has to be configured correctly so it doesn't cross your property line. You can't have it shining in your neighbor's house because you're too lazy to adjust it, okay? So just again, think about it as if it were a Wendy's and you were putting it next door. What would you want to have in the way of protections? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. I do agree about the light intrusions. Okay, any additional public comment? Come on down. Welcome, sir. Thank you for coming. Just state your name for the record.
Paul Rose, Hyannis. Good evening.
Paul.
Couple things here on your prohibited use.
Can you move the mic down a little bit? Do you mind?
Yeah, I'm short,
All
sorry.
right, I appreciate that. Me too. It's all good.
Prohibited use, number 1. So does this pertain to home businesses or personal residential? I mean, I have a Bobcat at my house. I don't have a business. It doesn't leave my yard. I use it to move snow, my firewood. You know, it's a motorized wheelbarrow or a motorized shovel, but, I mean, does that pertain to me with having a Bobcat in my yard? That's mine. I don't make money with it. It's nice when I clean the snow at the end of my driveway that the snow plow's put there, then I see my neighbor out there struggling, I go across the street and move theirs. I mean, that's one of my concerns. The second is about the, you got mobile home. Is that an RV, a motor home? Is that what that refers to? Mobile home? Okay, because how do I shield my motor home? It's 40 feet. I back it down my driveway. You drive by, you look at the nose of it. What do we do? Block off half my driveway with a 12-foot fence so my registered RV is not visible? I mean, it's registered. It's not sitting there in the back just rusting away. So that's a concern too. How do I shield something like that? That's not really fair. So it's down my driveway as far as I can get it, believe me. But those two concerns I have, so thank you.
Yeah, great comments. Appreciate it, Paul. Thanks for coming out tonight. And, yeah, well, I'll wait to see if there's any additional public comment before I respond. Any additional public comment this evening? Okay, we'll go to board response, and I'll lead it off. Again, I do agree with Mr. Schwab about the light intrusion. That is very important. But Mr. Paul Rose brought up a great point. A lot of people have, say, a Kubota or a John Deere or something like that that's not used at all for a business. They might just have, you know, a large lawn, and they use it for mowing, they use it for landscaping, anything like that. So I think, again, that term, commercial vehicles, is so critical to make sure that that's nice and tight, so that something like that would not be regulated.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
The personal Bobcat would not count.
Good.
It does not apply here.
Excellent. Good to hear. Appreciate that. Okay, any additional response to public comment? Ray?
Okay, so what's the difference between a commercial Bobcat and a personal Bobcat?
Well, again, I mean, I appreciate what you said, Commissioner Florence, but, you know, I think all of us agree that this needs to be tightened up because there's areas of this where that's not completely clear. So it's a great point, Ray, and it's a great point, Paul, so thank you for that. Okay, anything? Matt?
I don't think I've come across it, at least not in the residential districts, but I'm sure someplace, and maybe Mr. Florence can answer this, I'm sure there's an ordinance on the books about light control. Somewhere in the town. There's got to be.
There is, yes.
Not in
go ahead.
residential districts, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, interesting.
It is in our, site plan review looks at planometric plans all the time for commercial. We do not have anything in our residential district for that.
It's good to know. Good question, Matt. Okay. Okay. Anything else from this side? Response to public comment? Okay. Response to public comment? Oh. Oh, well, breaking the rules. Breaking the rules. I will say you were under 3 minutes, so I will allow it.
This is my first time, so.
All right. Go ahead. Go ahead. Just make it brief if you could.
Well, somebody said commercial vehicle. I mean, a Bobcat is commercial if you're making money with it. That's what I look at, commerce, making money. So
Sure.
It's a construction vehicle, and that's what you have here now. You went from commercial in this sentence to put construction, then you put bulldozers and backhoe, and that's what got my concern. I'm not making money with it. It's not a commercial vehicle.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a construction vehicle, if you want to call it that.
Sure.
But again, if you're not making money with a bulldozer, it's a lawn ornament, or whatever, it should be considered the same, so.
Understood.
that's all.
Okay.
Sorry, thank you.
Well, good eye, and again, that's why the comments about tightening this up are well taken.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Ray?
There is an answer to the difference between a commercial and a private Bobcat. It's the way the spots are arranged.
The spots. Okay. Boy, oh boy. It'd take me a minute to recover from that.
All right, while you're
Take
recovering.
a note, Jim.
I have a question.
Mary, take it away.
Just to clarify, when we say it would have commercial plates, right?
Well,
Not
the problem is
necessarily,
Bobcats, you know, excavators, dozers, there's no registration process for it.
Right, right.
You can call a Caterpillar dealer right now and give them some money, and there'll be a Bobcat in your driveway tomorrow. And there's no registration for it, no this or that, you know.
Same with, you know, a Kubota or something like that. Yeah. So, you know, I think
Yeah,
that.
I was thinking like he would have it on he's not going to drive it down the street.
Right.
He's going to have to put it on a trailer, which would be a commercial trailer.
I think.
True. But he brings up his is a great example because it doesn't leave his property.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
So,
that's why I was thinking it wasn't commercial.
But again, I think if we have a tight definition of the term commercial vehicle, and then we ensure that commercial vehicle that term is used through the whole document, then that covers us across the board. So all points well taken, and we can get that fixed up for sure. Okay.
Mr.
Yes.
Chairman, the issue with the motorhomes, I think, is a bit tricky too, because as Mr. Rose said, you know, I have somebody across the street, I'm in West Barnstable where the lots are quite big, but the neighbors across the street from me have they don't have access to the back of there's no drivable access to the back of properties. And I think that a lot, again, it becomes that, as was mentioned, dimensional zoning in terms of, quote unquote, the privilege of your size of your property. That some people can't physically remove their motorhomes from site. And I think that part of this needs to be, much as I would love it if I didn't have to look at that thing. But they don't have the capability of moving it back to the rear of the property because there's no drivable access. They'd get probably stuck back there.
Yeah.
So I think maybe that needs to be examined a bit too.
Understood. Certainly want it to be fair. Okay.
Again, to be helpful is,
Yeah.
you know, where in the suburb of DC where I used to live, precisely that issue came up for same thing, topography. And there should be a process to apply for a special exception, something like that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
and just
Tim.
jumping on that conversation, you know, again, if you kind of try to craft some sort of zoning, if it's dimensional or this or that, on this, you know, special permit provisions allow for unique circumstances like that, you know, and if it's, the baseline is setbacks or this stuff located, you know, without a site of a public way or something like that, okay, special permit provision, you know, if it meets the intent of it, if it's out front, but it can be, you know, the berm that can go around it or something, you know, so you're not penalizing people for not being able to reach the back of a lot or something. You know, I think
Although it
that's
would be
how that
interesting to penalize people who park a motorhome and never use it.
Well, that's yeah, that's tough. Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
All
That would be the Catherine provision.
Yeah. And,
Tim?
you know, my only other comment is, again, with the, you know, it sounds like, okay, if there's really strict definitions on the commercial vehicle, you know, I know some friends from the mills and from West Barnstable, and they're rednecks, and they own a ton. I mean, I know a friend of mine in the mills, he has an excavator, he has a bulldozer, he has an Oshkosh 10-wheeler. I can't tell you how many boats, how many trailers, bobcats, he's got it all over there. Horses on the lot, you know, everything. And none of it's for business. They're just, I don't know, he buys all this stuff, you know, and then there's a couple kids I know that went to the tech out in Marshall's Mills at 149 that have every version of Dodge truck thing you could ever imagine, including commercial vehicles. Like they have CDL Class A tractors, and they have Class B 10-wheelers and triaxles and everything. And it's great, but if it's not commercial use, you know, you're allowed it, but is some of this also kind of getting into that? I mean, it's a little different than what this is intention, but again, tying in that definition of how that works for all these other circumstances. And it's kind of the same thing with equipment or tractors that people might have. So it's an interesting discussion point.
Well, let's finish with one more question for Commissioner Florence. Is there a separate ordinance somewhere on the books that speaks to vehicles that are not commercial vehicles? So a maximum number of registered vehicles at a property or a maximum number of unregistered vehicles? Is there any sort of rules about that?
Yes, our chapter 228 discusses unregistered vehicles.
Okay.
And if you read and that's the one I talked about earlier, the enforcing authority for that is our police department.
And we mentioned that. Is there any limit on registered?
There's no limit on registered vehicles, right?
No.
Okay. Okay.
At least not in our zoning ordinance. I enforce the zoning ordinance, so
Sure.
I don't know
Yeah,
every ordinance in the
Okay.
chapter.
Okay.
My only other thing is, Commissioner Florence, if you were going to be sticking around for the next item, too.
I'm at your service, sir.
That'd be great. Yep, stay tuned. Okay, so again, we all feel comfortable continuing this to Monday, December 22nd?
Yes, sir.
Any additional questions, comments, concerns, discussion before we go for that motion? Any additional public comment? Okay.
Pick me.
Ray, would you like to make the
I'm
motion?
going to try this one.
Let's do it.
Help me, Mary. Okay, I move to continue the proposal, Town Council item number 2026012, proposal to amend the code of the Town of Barnstable, Part 1, General Ordinances, Chapter 240 zoning, Article 5, accessory uses, by repealing Section 240-45, off-street storage of trailers, and replacing with a new Section 240-45, off-street parking and storage of commercial vehicles, trailers, and mobile homes, until the December 22nd,
Yes, sir.
2025.
Perfect, nicely
Meeting.
done. Thank you. Do we have a second?
This is Tim, I'll second.
Thank you, Tim. All those in favor? Mary?
Aye.
Ray? Matt?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Catherine?
Aye.
And myself, Steve Robichaud, votes aye. That item is continued. We're going to take a quick 4-minute recess, and then we're going to get on to our next agenda item. Thank you. 4-minute recess. All right, we're ready to start.
You're all set, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Okay, we're back. We're moving to Town Council item number 2026-005. I'm going to read this one in. Proposal. Yeah. Oh, yes, yes, yep. We'll stand by, waiting on Karen. No problem.
Here you are.
Check that one out. All right, so I'm going to read this one in. This is,
I got one left if anybody wants to.
I'm good. Thank you, though. Town Council item number 2026-005. This is proposal to amend the Code of the Town of Barnstable, Part 1, General Ordinances, Chapter 240 Zoning, Article 3, District Regulations to modify building height requirements in the downtown Main Street District and downtown Village District. This has been continued from September 22nd, October 27th, and November 24th. We have an active open public hearing from November 24th, 2025. So we had a great discussion at our last meeting on November 24th. Staff, thank you very much for the information that you have provided. We have an updated downtown Hyannis existing building heights comparisons, and we have a wonderful chart diagram, downtown Hyannis zoning building height comparison. I had a discussion after our last meeting with staff. I am very much a visual person, and I kind of struggled a bit with the packet 240-2415, going back and forth between the various tables, Table 3, DMS, dimensional standards, and then Table 4, DV, dimensional standards. So kind of flipping back and forth was difficult. Another one of the difficulties that we encountered at our prior meeting and in these discussions was the different definitions throughout time of building height. So what I asked is for staff to present a view of 4 different points in time. One of them is the current discussion that the planning board is having that, again, took place on the 24th. Prior to that is our current recommendation, the memo from the ad hoc committee on zoning. And then, of course, we have our current zoning, which is the DMS. And prior to the DMS, we had the HVB. So, Jim, could you walk us through, start with this diagram that you have up on the screen? And am I right in saying that there are copies for members of the audience if they need it? Right over there.
Yeah, there are some copies right over near where the agendas are, if anybody in the public would like to get a hard copy.
Can you walk us through this?
Absolutely. So at our last discussion, the planning board was requesting a better understanding of what 45 or 49 feet at the top of ridge would look like and how that could play out. So we took that and, as discussing with the board and the chair, took what the recommendations that have come forward, as well as the current downtown Hyannis Main Street zoning is to date. And we also looked back at downtown Hyannis zoning from 2023, which was formerly known as the Hyannis Village Business District. So if you like, I can go through each one of them and kind of explain what they are. At first, it looks like a lot, but it's actually kind of boiled down pretty simply, I believe. So starting from left to right, so the prior zoning, so back in 2005, adopted the Hyannis Village Business District, and the maximum height was 46 feet, and the Hyannis Village Business mimicked that of the downtown Main Street by and large. So 46 feet in height, but again, this is that discussion of what that definition of height truly means. And so 46 feet in height at the plate. So you have to add then what the height of the roof may be if it wasn't a flat roof, that is. So we're talking about 46 feet in height plus whatever a hipped roof or gable roof may be.
I'm going to stop there for just 1 second. You know, my research has kind of indicated that an average roof for a structure like this would have a height between 8 and 12 feet. Just wanted to stop, and do we all kind of agree that that's a reasonable assumption? Tim, Matt, 8 to 12 feet, that's a typical roof, right?
Sure.
Okay. Could it be less? Could it be more?
It could definitely be more.
It could definitely be more.
That's probably the lower side of it.
Do you often see less than 8 feet?
It depends on how wide and how deep a building is, and which way the roof is going, you know? And if you look around Hyannis, we have a lot of different roof types. You know, one example that was brought up during the last meeting, and I think it's in this packet here, I forget the address of the building, but it's the box lunch building out here, you know, right out there, which I think it has a ridge height of like 51 or 54 feet or something like that. But
55.3.
55.3.
Is that 357 Main Street?
Yes.
Yes, the current Chez Antoine, and I will note for those examples, though we haven't got to those yet, but those examples, there is a plus or minus. I'm a little skeptical of the full 55 there. I would estimate a little bit lower than that, but
Okay.
just
All right, but just speaking about, I'm just trying to set an average.
In average,
roof
I mean,
height.
you know, like, for example, that is a building that has a hip roof that goes around, and it's not just one straight gable the whole way. It has
Right.
all these little hips, and it has a flat roof at the top. So it looks like a pitch roof, but it's only 10 or 12 feet.
Understood. Okay.
Whereas some other buildings on the other end of Main Street, the old, I don't know, the Seaside Bar building and Harley Davidson building, like, you notice, like, that has a really steep, you know, gable end on a few of them, where, like, that's probably, you know, that roof system could be 15 to 20 feet tall. So it varies depending on the building size, shape.
Good to know. All right, I appreciate that.
But the
So just-
bottom line, Mr.
sorry.
Chairman, is
Yeah.
for the first, the point that you were trying to make is that the first 1, 2, 3 that are measured to the plate line,
Yes.
you have to add a minimum of 6 feet to, so when you say max height, it's actually, the first one is, would actually be 52
Well, that was what I was
feet.
going to do. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
so I'm just, as you go through the examples, I'm just going to shout out kind of what a roof system would add. So a 6-foot roof system would lead to a total height of 52, 8-foot roof system 54, 10-foot roof system 56, and 12-foot roof system 58. So just wanted to put out there that total structure would be between, you know, on average, 52 to 58 feet. So I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, and that's
So-
a good kind of range to use.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then, sorry, Jim, go ahead. Moving along.
not at all. So that first section here, the Hyannis Village Business District, talks about building height. It doesn't refer to stories. So we first start introducing stories with the 2023 downtown Main Street. So that's where we get those maximums now. So when we pull out, you see on the green now, on the right side, we have an 18-foot maximum, 16-foot maximum, 16-foot maximum, 16-foot maximum. So that's that discussion we had last time, where the realities are we're likely not building to those maximums, right? So we're likely not seeing 4 stories of an 18-foot first story with a 16-foot residential. That's really high-end, really large, and we typically don't see that. We see more along the lines of like the 10-foot residential. But nevertheless, just wanting to illustrate to you what the maximums could be, because we don't have an overall height max. So with each of the stories allowing for 4 stories, granted the 4-story is setback, and the maximum per story, we're talking about 66 feet maximum. And again, that's back to the plate. So we're adding the height of the roof as well. So just as the chairman mentioned, there is a range there, but 66 to the plate.
Yeah.
With a total height of, if it's the same thing, you're talking 72 to 78.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. All right, and what are the, if you go to the third box, recommendation from the ad hoc?
So recommendation from the ad hoc, which ultimately is what is before you from the council. Again, we're taking those maximums, again, the realistic aspects of whether it would actually be constructed at 18, 16, and 16. Maybe not a very high reality, but we wanted to show that because we are still referring to stories here. So 18, 16, 16, and we're referring to that last one as a half story. So we're adding that essentially like a knee wall and then a gable roof there. So we're ultimately at 54 feet in height plus that roof structure there.
Which would be 60 to 66.
Yep, exactly. Okay. So I have some comments to I got my thoughts on paper to talk about how we got to where we are now. But before I read that, did you want to talk about what changed in your examples?
Yeah,
You
if I
added
could
a
just
couple.
wrap up the last section too real
Yes,
quick.
yeah.
So the last discussion was, I believe, from board members talking about, well, the true intent here is to lower the overall height of structures. We started with the example of what is being constructed to date to see if that is a concern, that being concern of 54, 55 feet. I think, generally speaking, it sounded like it's certainly the next step would be to go downwards. And the discussion revolved around 49 feet maximum. So we show, again, 49 feet in height maximum, but now we're adjusting that building height definition within the downtown Hyannis zoning to top of ridge, which ultimately now we're not adding that roof structure as you guys have been discussing. We are simply, that is the max dimensional requirement. And so just for everyone's knowledge here, as we're thinking about that, we removed the discussion of stories. So we looked at it, what 49 feet maximum would look like here. And we talk about 13 feet on the first story, 10 feet, and then ultimately 16 when we're talking about with the gable roof. So a half story with the gable, so approximately 16 feet would get you to your 49 feet in total. To that, we began to discuss real examples on Main Street for everyone to get a better understanding of what these true heights mean. And so we provided you with some examples before. Our survey team had gone out there, added just a couple more. We certainly can add more as time progresses if the council wishes to inquire about more. We added a few on Main Street there, the bright green building. I like to call it the Brazilian hot dog place because it has really good Brazilian hot dogs. But I think you get a smoothie there. I'm not sure. And
Enough of
that
Jim.
is approximately 20.
It's a new way to raise money. It's commercial.
But the survey looked at 28.2 feet in height at this location, so that is meant to be, or our survey team's meant to be at the building ridge height, so essentially 2.5 story. We went down to Coastal Cove and looked at that building ridge, and so again, as Tim mentioned, kind of a steeper roof line there, and that's at just over 40 feet in height. And then the next ones, which you've already had, but we can quickly go through. So one across the street here, that's a fairly steep building, 3.5 stories. That's approximately 55 feet in height at the roof line. As we mentioned, the Shant one, it's listed as 55, and that's at the roof, again, the roof height, but that's really sloped back. So what you're seeing at the road is different from what the ultimate ridge height is, but nevertheless. And then as we talked about at the last time, 48.5, and that's essentially at the gutter line, 61 ultimately up to the top of the roof there for the elevator shaft there, and where we sit tonight is approximately 75 feet in height.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. I appreciate that. And we got to give Kate credit on this diagram. She did a really, really good job. Again, I'm a visual person. It's helpful for me. So I do have some comments that I typed up because I have to give some perspective here and offer kind of a facts-based breakdown. It's very important to me that we're all kind of clear about, what we're looking at here. So we'll start there. The public has been very clear. Reduce the maximum allowable height of buildings in downtown Hyannis. We've not just heard this here at the planning board. We've heard it from the public at the Ad Hoc Committee on Zoning. We've heard it at the Hyannis Main Street Historic Commission, and we've heard it at town council meetings. For this very reason, this is where myself and my fellow board members have decided to focus our attention on the maximum allowable building height in downtown Hyannis. What was not included in the official memo from the Ad Hoc Committee on Zoning was just that, a limit to the maximum allowable height. Using the image on the screen as our guide, and under the assumption that a typical roof system is 8 to 12 feet, the maximum allowable building height under the official recommendation from the Ad Hoc Committee on Zoning would be between 62 and 66 feet. Our board has read the memo from this committee and has decided to go a step further. Not only have we proposed instituting a maximum allowable building height at 49 feet, we have more specifically added the actual definition of building height to provide the public with a more predictable result. The current zoning, as well as the recommendation from the Ad Hoc Committee, measure building height from the ground level to the top plate. If the Ad Hoc Committee felt it more appropriate to measure to the ridge, this would have been included in their findings and recommendations. The Hyannis Village business zoning that was in place from 2005 to 2023 did the same. Our board has identified an issue with this. It does not offer the public a predictable, precise result because of how roof systems vary. Tim spoke about that earlier. Above the top plate may be anywhere from 6 to 20 feet, we've heard this evening, maybe more, increasing the height considerably. For this reason, we have defined building height as starting at average mean grade of the lot to the ridge height. This has done two things. First, it closed a loophole that potentially mounding a site and placing a building on a man-made hill. And second, it offers the public a clear and predictable result as the measurement now includes all of the building rather than all of the building except the roof. The maximum allowable height proposal that the planning board is considering before you this evening, with the maximum allowable height from the average mean grade to the ridge set and defined at exactly 49 feet, will result in the lowest maximum allowable building height in this area in the past 20 years. As we can all see on the diagram on the screen, the zoning that was in place from 05 to 2023 featured a maximum allowable building height of 46 feet from ground level to top plate. The top plate, of course, sits below a roof system, and again, the average height of a roof system in downtown Hyannis is between, say, 6 and 12 feet, average. This means the maximum allowable height from 2005 to 2023 was 46 feet plus a roof, which again would result in something between 52 and 58 feet. Again, we are proposing to limit this to 49 feet. I do recognize that the maximum number of stories from 05 to 23 was 3, but we all need to remember that it has been clearly demonstrated that reducing stories does not necessarily equate to limiting building height. The goal, the problem, the issue that was clearly outlined by the Ad Hoc Committee and by the public was building height. This is why our board chooses to focus specifically on building height, because that's what the public has asked for. So I just wanted to get that out there because I think there's been a lot of conversations. Dealing with these two definitions for building height has been a little bit challenging. We now have this in front of us, and I think it's very clear what we're proposing, and I am quite pleased with what we're proposing. So let's go to additional board question, comment, discussion, and then we'll go to the public. Anything on this side? Any thoughts? How do we feel?
I want to
Okay.
hear what.
Sounds good. Over here?
The only thing I was going to ask, I know if the appropriate time is now or during public comment or after public comment to ask Commissioner Florence to come up, because the only thing that,
Let's do that now.
well, I'll wait for him now. Come on.
Yeah, while he walks up, I mean, one thing I did want to say is that I think there should be a goal in the town to get a consistent definition of building height across all districts.
Mr. Chairman, Brian Florence, Building Commissioner.
Thank you.
How can I help? What was the question? I didn't hear the question.
Tim, what do you got?
The only question is, we were discussing this, early on when we were first reviewing the recommendations from the Ad Hoc Committee and the 3.5, and, well, okay, what's it actually going to do? What they want to reduce height? And then, we kind of came up with, why don't we just go to the ridge? I mean, that's the one thing that's a definitive point, and, that's kind of where this whole discussion started. And at the last meeting, it was actually, I think, when we were reviewing the zoning maps, not so much on the Main Street Hyannis, it was on the DV North Street, and the question comes up of, well, what's the zoning district behind it? Okay, that's an RB district, and we pulled up the building height, and that's when it came up to the top plate. So, Commissioner Florence, I just want to ask, what has your experience been working with building heights in the town as determined by the top plate? And any thoughts on that definition, at least for this zoning area, for these three Hyannis? Yeah, because it would be the DMS, the DV, plus the DN, going to a total ridge height elevation.
Sure. Thank you for the question. It's a good one. I was shocked when I came to Barnstable and found that they use plate height for the very reasons you folks have talked about tonight. And I've seen ridges that are roof structures that are well in excess of 12 feet, more like 20 feet. You can take you can, if the building's wide enough, you can make a really tall roof. So every place that I'm aware of uses average natural grade to ridge height. It's the most consistent, as you guys have said, and most practical approach. I've never liked the plate, using the plate, because which plate are we talking about? You're talking about the plate on the top of the wall, the top of a cupola, you talk top of a dormer. It's. I think what the approach you're taking is the most practical one.
Probably more about the Barnstable zoning history than anyone. Do you know why is Barnstable the only one that went to the plate to begin with? I don't know.
I have no idea. It's been there for a while, though. I know that. And it was there before all the staff that I have. So, like I said, it's a more practical approach. It's the one that most communities use ridge and average natural grade.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just want to highlight that real quick. That's one of my favorite parts about this is average natural grade. That makes it so that somebody can't bring in fill and raise the natural grade. That's, if somebody purchased the lot, you can't change that, right?
Right, and if they're on a slope, you can take, if they're on a slope, you can take the average of that, and it makes sense.
Sure. Okay, appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Matt.
Mr. Florence, while we have you, I just, again, we've brought a lot of clarity to this issue. In the intent here, I think, is to still create an occupiable half story. And again, I'm looking to make sure that the intent is not a half story in terms of its definition of the building code, where it's 50% of the floor area below. The intent is that can be developed, but it's under a primarily sloped roof. And I understand the limitations of the ceiling height and that sort of thing. How do you see that in terms of your role as interpreting the permit process? With the intent that that's a fully developable space on that half story?
Yeah, and that's something I failed to say, is that the approach you're taking is more enforceable than the previous interpretation. It's not interpretation, the previous ordinance. Practically speaking, if you have a ridge, you're only going to get 50% of the floor area below. If you go to the actual head height of 7.5 feet, so.
Makes sense, yeah. Okay, anything else for Commissioner Florence?
Thank
you. Great, thank you. Any additional comments before we go to public? Okay, public comment. Any members of the public like to speak? Mr. Schulte, thank you. Sorry to make you wait.
No problem. Bob Schulte from Centerville, former chair of the Ad hoc Zoning Committee. First, I want to start by thanking Jim and his staff for this diagram. I know we had talked about it during the course of our discussions at the Ad hoc Zoning, as well as follow-ups through the meetings with the Planning Board. I think it's very helpful. I think there is some additional information that we need, and Jim and I have talked about this. First, I just want to comment, and Jim and I were talking about it beforehand. I think it's a little bit, while this is technically accurate on the recommendation from the Ad hoc Committee, the heights there, as I mentioned to him, when we discussed this, I think the Ad hoc Zoning Committee, and talking with Jim, we were looking at the 14 for the first and more like a 10-foot for the second and third, bring it up to 34, and then that half story with the roof line. I think in our minds it was looking more like about 44 to 46 feet, not the 54 you're seeing plus the additional 12. just like you said, Chair Robichaud, you know, the discussion of a maximum height roof obviously wasn't discussed when your group passed the current zoning, the form-based zoning. That was not considered because I'd like to think that you didn't in good conscience plan and permit a 72 to 78 foot height building. So same thing, when you said the ad hoc, you know, brought this to you thinking it was going to be that height, that's not really true. We were discussing lower heights based on the discussions we had with Mr. Kupfer and the folks in the planning department looking at that, which is why at the last meeting, I'd been suggesting that we look at a 46-foot height coming down a full 10 feet from what you're seeing at the Cascade property right now, which is about 55 versus the 49, and 3 stories. Just a couple thoughts, you know, I have. I think that, you know, one of the things that would be helpful, a next iteration that I think it would help the committee and the public as well to see in the town council, and I've talked to Jim about this, is it's great to see these buildings in, individually here, but what would be really helpful would be to see some sites on Main Street. For example, at 460 Main, where you have the Fresh Catch restaurant and that big parking lot. I think it would be very helpful to see a diagram that shows that lot with the buildings on either side with a 35, a 40, a 45-foot building. So you could actually see what this is going to look like. Same thing, another location, 595 Mass Bay or 181 Main, where the Four Seas parking lot, or Four Seas building and the big parking lot. You need to see what these things may actually look like. It's great to say, okay, here's a building that's 3 stories with a half story, but you need to see what it looks like on the street, what's actually out there. And that's one of the things that we've asked a couple of times for, and I think it would be very helpful for this planning board and people to see what that would look like. I think seeing these pictures here, again, is very helpful for comparing that, but I think it really would help to see these buildings on the street. So I think that's one thing that's really important. I would also just say that, you know, I think these discussions have been tremendous, very helpful. I think we're all kind of working through this. I will tell you that I've been approached by several counselors and the public. There are a lot of people that are looking at the 199 Barnstable building. It's going in on the Sprinkle property. People are looking at that saying that's 35 feet, 2.5 stories. That's what we would like to see as a maximum on Main Street. I'm not here to say yes or no. I'm just letting you know that that discussion is being had. Town council can ignore what the ad hoc says, what the planning board. They have the prerogative to make their own decisions. And there is a movement right now with a lot of people discussing bringing those heights down even lower than what we're discussing. So I just introduced that as something you should be thinking about as well. But I really think it would help to see illustrations of the street, like I said, with various sizes so we can actually see what this is going to look like. Seeing them alone on a piece of paper here really doesn't help you visualize. And I'm like you, Steve, I need to, Chair Robichaud, I need to see the actual diagrams. That's what helps me understand what we're voting on. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you very much. Appreciate the comments. Mr. Schwab, thank you. Welcome.
Hi, Eric Schwab, Hyannis. Just a quick question, point of clarification, really. Why is it you're not taking up setbacks? Is there a reason you're not touching them?
It's just not part of the scope. It's not part of what town council asked us to look at.
Is it not in the zoning?
Jim, sorry.
Yep, so to the chairman, setbacks are certainly in the zoning, but that's not what's before the planning board at this time. The council has 4 very specific public hearings open right now, and height is one of them, setbacks is not.
Okay, so that was, can I say accurately that was at your discretion not to look at setbacks, or I blame
No,
the town council?
we're simply focused on what the town council asked us to look at, and it was the priority items outlined in the memo from the ad hoc committee.
Okay.
One of which being building height.
I just don't want
And
to
that's-
blame, don't want to blame you for something that you didn't actually
For
do.
sure. I mean,
so-
that's not to say that that may not come soon in the future.
Okay, because I attended the Hyannis Civic Association where the President Tammer spoke for quite a long time to a full house, which is unusual for us. And the complaints focused not just on height, but also on the setback. So this 201 Main Street is clearly the villain of the day. But the building meets a lot of needs, right? It has the commercial front, which people ask for. But it's so close to the sidewalk that's really a problem for people. Because if you were to trip on those stairs, your head could literally fall on the curb. I mean, it's that close. It's an 8-foot sidewalk. So I think you need to at least recommend or suggest somehow to the council that they consider some measurement for setback that starts at the curb. I don't know if that's inappropriate, or maybe recommend that the sidewalk width needs to be a certain minimum or something, anything, because you need at least, I think, 4 feet or 8 feet, whatever it is. And I just want to reiterate the last thing Bob said is that some people are talking 35 feet right now. I mean, they're just sick of it, right? They don't want 55 feet, right? So it would be helpful to understand, does that mean you have to lop off 2 floors, right? I mean, does 35 feet get you 2.5? Or if you guys hate half stories, someone mentioned they didn't like half stories. If you guys don't like half stories, then, you know, can you fit a commercial building into 35 feet? And how would you define that? And I would at least think about that, because the town council probably is going to discuss it, at least along Main Street. And they'll need your guidance on what that means. Like, what does 35 feet mean? How much can you get into that smaller height? Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate the comments. If there's any additional public comment, we welcome it at this time. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for coming. Talking about building height, downtown Hyannis. Just state your name for the record.
Hi, my name's Chris Gregory, Centerville.
Chris.
I would have liked to have been here or been on Zoom, but I have 2 kids under 5. I just finished the put-down battle, and I saw this image on the live feed and decided to drive down as quickly as I could to give my thoughts.
I'm impressed. Thanks for being here. Oh, you were the one that submitted the,
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah. And
in the flesh before us. Wow.
I wasn't able to comment earlier. I really hope you'll take a look at the home resident comment and looking at limiting zoning that limits the negative externalities of that equipment and just not viewing the equipment itself as a negative.
Yeah, you had some great comments, and we very much appreciate it.
Last time you all met, someone said, nobody wants 4 stories. And I know the story thing is kind of out the window at this point. I don't care about the number of stories in a building. I don't think buildings are villains. What I do think is that we have a problem on Main Street that's kind of the opposite of what everyone's talking about. I think Main Street's kind of ugly, kind of sleepy, and geared towards people that come here for 3 months of the year. It's not for us. And I think that one of the best ways to improve that situation is have some people living there and bringing their demand as consumers into that market. I can say that I don't really care about the height of the building. I worry about the amount of units that we're losing based on the certain height that we're picking. So we're already saying you can't have X number of spots or whatever. We're already probably limiting units from that. And I also know that like Charlie Bloom has complained, you know, I don't like these developments because we're only getting 10% affordable housing out of it, which I think is completely valid, because there's a 40B proposed by me in Centerville that's going to have way more affordable units if it's built than a 100-unit building on Main Street, and that's kind of dumb. I would like you all to just not take bullets out of our chambers in terms of potentially being able to affect more housing and more affordable housing in this area. So is there a way to put a subsection in all of this and say, if someone wants to build a 40B on Main Street, if someone wants to build 100 units with 25 affordable, can they, if you took the recommended height from the ad hoc and said, do the stories that fit in that, get the units that fit in that, I think that's a valid approach. I think use that as an incentive to get people to build what we want to build. I'll also just say, just as like a side note, Main Street's really hot in the summer now. The summers are really hot, and especially on the south side of that street, some taller buildings were casting a little bit of shade. It might make it a little bit nicer to be there in the summer because it bakes now, and it's not fun to be there if you're on your own. It's definitely not fun to be there if you have 2 toddlers with you. So like, I don't know. I keep on hearing that nobody wants this, that the public has spoken. I talk to a different crowd. I've never heard anybody say that. And I'm afraid you don't see a lot of people like me coming to these meetings and giving comment. So I just wanted to put that out there. I'm not saying that my opinion values more than anyone else, but I do take exception to the idea that the same people that I see over and over again giving comment somehow represent the entire 30,000 people here. So I don't think that it's true. All right? Thank you very much. I really appreciate all of you. I really like watching your meetings on YouTube, so thank you.
Awesome, fantastic. Thank you very much for coming down. I really appreciate your comments and, that you made it here. So that's fantastic. Any additional public comment, please come forward at this time. Okay, seeing none, we will start with response to public comment. I'll lead off. I'll just mention regarding setbacks, we are at the disposal of the council. I know that was an item included in the memo from Mr. Schulte and his committee, and certainly I feel as though that will probably be one of the next ones that comes down from town council, and we will be ready, waiting, and willing to have that conversation. Town councilors, they're the ones that asked us to review this building height, and obviously they are the ones that will ultimately decide. So they will certainly have their time to speak on this. But I'm certainly glad that none are here speaking what Mr. Schulte mentioned about lowering business height, because I don't feel that would be appropriate, because they would be weighing in on something that they asked us to look into. And I did want to mention to Mr. Gregory, we all should just remember that we do still have regulatory agreements in the growth incentive zone. So if something did come along that did not meet the zoning, and a applicant wanted to pursue a regulatory agreement, and the town felt like that was a good fit, they would have that opportunity and that right to do so. So we still have that in our tool belt, which I think is great. Any response to public comment over here? All set? Okay, Ray, something?
I just want to salute you for coming down, because I think your comments are refreshing, and sometimes I find that sometimes we get trapped in an echo chamber with one point of view, and perhaps there are, in fact, other points of view. And I find that I think your point is well taken, that sometimes folks don't come down that with a particular point of view that's not anti. So I find that refreshing.
I'm going to piggyback on that. Oh, sorry. Do you have more?
No.
I'm going to piggyback on that real quick, just to say that I still very much support housing generation in the town of Barnstable. And, if you actually kind of take a look, Jim and I have had this conversation before, where if you actually take a look at what applications have come through, many have been within the 3.5 story sub 50-foot range. So I feel like housing generation is still going to be something that's occurring. So I'm optimistic is what I'm trying to say. But yes, it was great to hear Mr. Gregory's comments. Matt, anything to add?
I'm just glad, again, to hear a different perspective on things. And I think limiting the building height to the ridge is really the only way to do this. And, you know, if the council can, again, do whatever they want to do when we send this to them. But I am glad we didn't rubber stamp as it was recommended last week, or last hearing. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Any response, public comment? Over here. Tim?
No, it was good to hear all the public comment. I do think we are on the correct path. I also share the concern that was brought up that, you know, we don't want to stifle development on this 3.5 story. We want to make sure that, you know, a 3.5 story building of this scale is practical under these guidelines. So I feel like after we have a response to public comment, I just want to do one more story build up. You know, make a fake building on Main Street and say, first floor is this, how tall is this and that, and just kind of, you know, make sure the math checks out here. But no, that's it. And then the reg agreement is another thing to keep in mind here, that if there is a unique circumstance for a building that wants to come in with a 54-foot ridge height, and that's what they really need to make it work for the units or some particular thing, you know, that's still an avenue. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. Any response, public comment?
Yeah, I just want to say I kind of drove by 201 Main Street, and I would have to agree with Eric in terms of the sidewalk. You know, in my opinion, I do agree that it's a little narrow. You know, I'd love to see that a little more wider in terms of, and the other things, like there is no curb back. So I have to agree with him on that one. But I also I want to say thank you to Mr. Gregory for coming over. Your comments are valid, extremely valid, and I wish more people would come out, you know, on our meetings to talk. And you're right. Sometimes we see the same people over and over and over again. And I do agree with you that I believe that those people do not represent the entire community. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate that. Okay, I'm going to make a motion to, I think you said you were all set. You all set? Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, she gave me the all set nod. Yeah. Yeah. Staff, great job on the page numbers. Love it. Okay, I'm going to make anybody opposed to closing the public hearing? Okay, I move to close the public hearing. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Michael. All those in favor? Mary?
Aye.
Ray?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Catherine?
Aye.
And myself, Steve Robichaud, votes aye. Jim, procedurally, okay, you know, this document here, the current red line draft of 240-24.1.5 represents our discussion, meaning should we wish to offer a positive recommendation with this, we would say as amended.
So ultimately, it's up to the board to how you wish to draft your report back to the council. You know, the discussion of whether it's recommended or not recommended really revolves around whether or not this falls within the spirit of what was provided to you. So if you feel that you can earnestly recommend what was provided to you with some amendments to better that, you certainly can make that motion. Alternatively, if you feel that you've expanded beyond what was provided to you and it may conflict with what was provided to you, you would then not recommend and you would suggest alternatives.
Well, I will offer my initial thoughts, and then we can get the board's reaction. But, you know, certainly the recommendation, the memo that came down was to drop it from 3.5 to 4 stories down to 3 to 3.5 stories. We, I think, made that a little bit stricter by limiting the height and defining it in a more strict and specific manner. So I believe we are well within the spirit of the recommendation to state that we are moving to recommend as amended. Does anybody disagree?
I just don't know if we want to have the discussion that, okay, procedurally, the planning board recommends with amendments to town council. I know we don't control whatever happens to town council, But they can't just go opening up the zoning amendments and start redlining it and changing stuff around, can they?
No, I think they can.
Yeah.
They can?
Yeah, certainly. This is a report back to the council, so they'll take it under advisement. You're their advisors to land use, essentially. So they're going to look at the initial notice that was, or the initial documents that you received, that they're going to receive back at the town council hearing when that is official. They'll receive the original one, and then they'll receive your report, and your report will likely could state something to the effect of we recommend. However, we recommend with these amendments, and we will have the draft red line of what those amendments would look like. That's for them to consider. They don't have to take those as, and move them forward, but they certainly could, and they could have discussion on those.
But they could further amend, or they could say, okay, well, we don't like paragraph 3. Let's take paragraph 2. Let's do that. We can
That's
change.
correct. Yes, they could amend.
And if it goes with a positive recommendation from this, as amended, in that report, is it zoning changes are 2/3 majority, right?
2/3 majority, yes.
And if it goes with a negative recommendation from this board, also, but with proposed amendments, does that change the majority or the voting threshold at all?
No, it doesn't change the quantum of vote. It does change the impacts to whether or not this zoning amendment could come back to the town council sooner than 2 years. So
it makes it, what's the name for that? The
repetitive petition.
A repetitive petition.
So exactly.
So if it leaves this board negative as amended, and they
turn it down, so they
turn it down,
Yep.
then it can't be brought up again for 2 years.
That's correct.
Okay. So I don't know where the rest of this board is going. I don't know if the correct procedure is to not recommend it. Here are the amendments. It goes to town council, and then they're, basically, all they can do is vote on it as amended or not, or it doesn't change.
So, this is my thought, Mr. Chairman, is that essentially, if I think your questions covered exactly what I was thinking about. We would move not to recommend the zoning amendment as presented, and further recommend that the council consider the revised ordinance from the planning board.
Well, the following amendments, I think, is the way you define it.
What I'm saying is that we would, I'm thinking about keeping the things clean. So, because my concern is you say, well, we recommend what we received with the following amendments, so you're kind of taking two things and mushing them together, as opposed to keeping it clean and saying we do not recommend what we received. We recommend the following amended version, so that there's we keep the two entities separate, and there's no confusion about what we're recommending. That's all. If we can do a push me, pull you, and kind of graft things on, my concern is that that we don't have any confusion about what we're actually recommending. That's all. I think that what we received was a good try, but clearly, I think that what we came up with is
one problem separate from kind of the legal ease in the terms of if it goes there with a negative recommendation or positive recommendation, I think everyone on this board is under agreement that the way it came written to us, we are not recommending it back.
It's flawed, yes.
Because if they voted that in as it was written,
yes,
it's gonna, in theory, it changes a flat roof, 4th story down to it wasn't the intent. And we just spent a lot of time and hard work to really kind of get these things lower,
I think Jim might have a recommendation.
Yeah, I just want to state that one of the motions we have available to us is I move to recommend Town Council item number 2026-005 as amended. We have the option to present that motion to Town Council. Ultimately, we were asked to reduce the building height, again, from 3.5 to 4 stories down to 3 to 3.5 stories, which I read as a maximum of 3.5 stories. We've done that. So the intent has been achieved.
I'm just talking like
what I mean?
the practical reason of, okay, yes, we vote to approve it with our amendments, but how it shows up to town council is, oh, it was approved and, kind of here are some amendments that they added on.
Yes.
And then it's up to, then the burden is on them
That's my
to include
concern.
that and sew that in.
Yeah.
And I also think was this also going to be because don't those things have to be drafted up and reviewed, like the actual report and letter? Like, is this something that staff would take all the comments, everything we talked about tonight, we give them direction and we review it at the next meeting?
Well, there's nothing to review. That's already been done. This document right here has everything that we've discussed in it, and this diagram in front of us has everything on it. So there's nothing else to revise. No changes have been discussed this evening. So ultimately, it comes down to, is it a not recommend with the following adjustments or amendments, or a positive recommend with the adjustments? I mean, I guess it could go either way.
Well, what you're saying, Mr. Chairman, is, so to just be very clear, as you said, you could recommend as amended, and that is that's a combination of what was received and then what we fine-tuned, as opposed to be clear, what we received needed work. We don't recommend that. We recommend the following alternative.
Yeah, it could go either way. I mean, I think it just comes down to the manner in which we prefer. Matt?
I totally get it, and again, I want the town council to chime in on this, because this is an important issue, right? And I think we've done a good job in kind of corralling this thing. I'll ask the question this way. Should we give a negative recommendation on the original proposal, which I think most of us have a concept that it was not achieving the intent? That negates the ability of the town council to send it back to us in its form as it was presented to us. And I think all of us would agree that it is not something we want to see again. I think, and then we give it a recommendation on this newer version, which is, somewhat similar. But we put some mathematics to it, which are predictable, and then they can go and bat that around. And if they want to send that back to us and say, hey, it's 38 feet, not 26, and we're here to just put it together. I think if we don't want to see it back the original way it came in, then we recommend, and then we do not recommend adoption as originally presented, and we recommend as modified.
Yeah.
Right. So we don't want that original one to come back. We think this does a better job of it, and whatever the council decides, this is a good starting point. Yeah. For that discussion, and I think setting that ridge height, redefining the building height is super important, and it allows the town council a predictable cap that they can use as they want.
Unambiguous.
I mean, we're trying to help, right?
Yeah, so I agree with Matt, Tim, and Ray. I think that is the way to go, and that one would read, I move to not recommend zoning amendment as presented to town council, and further recommend that town council consider the revised ordinance from the planning board. So, yeah, I think that sounds definitely more appropriate. Jim?
I just wanted to add, just so that sounds appropriate if the planning board wishes to move in that route. I think we got the language there, so we're happy to draft that up if that's the motion that's made. I just want some assurances there that the town council could see that, and during their hearing, if it's not going in a positive manner, they are the sponsors, so they are welcome to withdraw at any point. So that wouldn't begin that repetitive petition process if they said, you know what, let's step back, let's withdraw this, and let's reconsider what the planning board said.
Yeah, because they were the sponsor, they can withdraw and say, okay, let's start this whole process over, but now with this.
Exactly right. Or they could amend. They could take yours into consideration and amend.
Yeah. Yep. Ultimately, I think the good thing is that we've put some good time into this. We've given it enough time, a lot of discussion, and I think what we've come up with is a great thing. So, all right. No, I agree that the negative recommendation is the way to go. Any further discussion? Okay, I'm going to make a motion. All right, so I move to not recommend zoning amendment town council item number 2026-005 as presented to town council, and further recommend that town council consider the revised ordinance from the planning board.
Second.
Thank you, Ray. All those in favor? Mary?
Aye.
Ray?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Catherine?
Aye.
And myself, Steve Robichaud, votes aye. It is unanimous. Okay, thank you very much. Moving along, we have general correspondence. Sorry? Ray. Yep,
So we actually cleared one of them.
we did. We did. Yep,
What? Oh,
yep.
two, we've done two.
That's right.
Three.
Yep.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing.
There we go. All right, some general correspondence. So, Chapter 91 notice, 0 and 87 Salton Point Road, Barnstable Harbor, restoration and protection of existing marsh. Another Chapter 91 notice for the town of Barnstable, maintenance and improvement dredging, Barnstable Harbor. That's exciting. Jim, some staff updates.
We'll pass on the updates today if that's okay.
Sounds great. Appreciate that.
Poor Jim has to give us an update now on like 4 meetings because they've all been long ones.
I can't wait.
We'll
It's
have a
gonna be
laundry
great.
list in
It's gonna be
January.
great.
Yeah, he's a doozy waiting for us in January.
Tune into that one. Has everyone had a chance to review the November 24th, 2025 draft minutes? Okay, look for a motion to approve.
I'd make a motion to approve the minutes of November 24th, 2025.
Thank you. Mary, all those in favor? Mary?
Aye.
Ray?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Catherine?
Aye.
And myself, Steve Robichaud, votes aye. Future meetings, December 22nd at 7 p.m. and January 12th, 2026 at 7 p.m. Wow. Anything before we adjourn? Okay, I move that we adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mary. All those in favor? Mary?
Aye.
Ray?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Catherine? Myself, Steve Robichaud, votes aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.